Oh shit.
I just watched Steven be like, hey, do you have napkins?
Yeah.
Do you have a mask I can wipe my underboob on?
I do. Alright, man. We're recording a podcast now.
Cool.
I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I usually start this off by pouring alcohol in here. And then having the guest. Oh yeah. Here. Light it.
Lighting the torch. All right.
Light the torch.
Damn, you do it in style.
That was given to me by Katie Silva in Austin.
We should have had my taser.
Oh yeah, we totally should have. Oh man, I totally forgot about that.
Are we doing this though?
Yeah.
All right.
Now it's lit.
That's good?
Cool.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, there's fire. How you doing, man?
Doing good.
I appreciate you doing this.
First time I've been in the back of a van.
It's the first time you've done, I guess you did the Proco interview thing once.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking about, to where this is kind of my podcast virginity, because I think the only real public thing I've done is that video with Stan at Comic-Con.
How's it feel?
Years ago. Being on a podcast?
Or just being on camera in general?
I mean, I think it feels fine.
Yeah,
It takes some acclimation, I assume.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things, like, once you start getting used to it, it becomes like you will like forget about the cameras.
Yeah,
you know, it's like once you get into the conversation.
Well, and I guess I've been it's kind of combination of things, because like through Riot we've done some like behind the scenes video stuff, but it's usually just like cool music playing and you're just slow motion, like drawing on a tablet or something. But this is getting raw.
Yeah. So, talk about shit. Yeah. But, well, do you want to introduce yourself to people?
Sure thing. So I'm TJ Guyson, currently a story development artist at Riot Games, and also do my own projects in my spare time. Long-term, short-term friend with Christian Nee.
Nice, cool. I've known you for 3 years, I think. I think we did the math yesterday.
Yeah.
It's been about 3 years.
It's been a very packed 3 years.
It's weird. It feels like I've known you for a lot longer than 3 years.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. Which is, I think that's a good testament to...
Yeah, to a friendship.
Yeah.
I've known you through multiple job changes and big moves and all that kind of stuff. And and very strange.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the way I usually start this thing is the goal of it is not to talk about technique. It's not about how to get a job in the industry. It's not about like how to become a better draftsman at all. It's more about the why of things, you know. And when I look at you, I was telling Dea this. Like, I see somebody who's like a true craftsman. I see somebody who, like, you know, you're from Phoenix, right? You were somebody who just really loved art. And you did a lot of art. You made your own board game. That led to other opportunities at Magnum Opus, which eventually led to you working at Riot. You know, and I meet a lot of people who, I guess, don't really feel like the things that they're doing are relevant to their future, you know? And when I look at you, it's like, I see somebody who has followed their dreams in a way that has enabled them to have a certain amount of success that is uncommon for people as illustrators, you know? Like, I mean, you were working as, you're making tacos during the day, and then, you know, working as an illustrator at night to be able to do what you really loved, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I guess the point of this is to talk about like the why of doing this stuff in the first place, you know?
Sure. I mean, maybe it's a good place to start, is just kind of dip into where I've come from with this. So yeah, like you mentioned the whole taco thing. I bring that up a lot, which is something I try to keep in touch with. That it still feels like not that long ago that I was, you know, cleaning up public bathrooms and like serving tacos to people and like having to do the same old like service industry shit, and feeling like, is this ever gonna happen? You know? And then I think there's once it does happen, right? You get into the industry, the art industry or whatever, you make it, and so you can start doing art as a career. I oftentimes encounter a lot of people who get jaded with it really quick.
Right.
And that's something that you and I and like Scott Flanders, you know, we've kind of talked quite a bit, and that's something that we've all dealt with and kind of encountered in different ways. Yeah. Which is cool, because it's kind of helped me kind of understand where I'm at with it. Why do I feel a different way, you know, and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's definitely something I think we can really dig deep into if you want to, is that experience of like, why does it, you know, work for someone like me, whereas it doesn't for others. And
well, I could tell you what I think it is. I think it's like a lack of resentment and a love for the process. You know? It's like, you know, you would do art if you had the choice not to, you know, Like no matter what you're doing, I suspect that kind of creative expression is just part of who you are, you know. And there's zero part of you working at Riot that you obviously like working there, but it's not an affective person. You don't tie much of your identity to working at Riot, you know. It's like you are TJ Guyson, the painter, you know, and you contribute to these projects, but you're fundamentally there just to share ideas. Like, I don't know, we were watching Arcane last night, and you know, you're like, oh, I did the logo you did the front facing logo on Netflix for Arcane, you know, and you did the emojis for I guess
the Twitch stream,
for the Twitch stream. And it's like, again, for anyone listening to this, it's cool to me that you went from, again, cleaning bathrooms and making tacos to, you know, like, oh, that's the thing I worked on Netflix, you know. It's like, again, it's kind of strange, right? It's
very weird. And it's something that I've always tried to stay in touch with too, because there's some people who get in, you know, once you make it, you can lose focus of why you came here and why you stay here. And so something I try to stay a lot in touch with, and you know, it's like something I've said before is my ritual when things have been different with the pandemic, but like when I walk onto Riot campus in the morning, you know, this kind of like you park in this garage, you go up the staircase, and then you kind of see the open courtyard. And I always kind of have this moment of like Zen or reflection of just like, how did I get here? Where did I come from?
Right.
To kind of stay in touch with, I could fuck up real bad and be right back at that taco shop and whatever. And so just always keep in touch with that so that I can always appreciate where I'm at, but then also stay level-headed of, you know, is this where I should be at? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and I think it's like there's this idea of like redemption or I'm trying to think of the word, repentance in all this stuff, where it's like, even if you fucked up so bad that you were fired from Riot, the thing to do is like it is to do nothing. That's not the correct thing to do. It's to go back to the taco shop and just continue to make tacos and just keep moving forward, you know? And I think that's part of, again, when I meet people who have had some amount of success in their lives, I was telling you earlier, I've been doing like little case studies of people that I think are living a closer version of what my idea of heaven is. And again, it always comes back to the idea of like trying to get rid of resentment in your life and blaming other people, and learning to love the process of the thing that you feel like you're meant to do on the planet, you know?
And I mean, whether that's a glorious task or just something that fulfills you, right?
Right. Well, and I think painting is both those tasks at once, because it is a tedious thing to do. It's like, no matter who you are, if you're a master painter or a beginner, the act of putting down a stroke on a Cintiq is the same for everybody, you know?
Yeah, true.
And it's just decisions at that point, you know? It's like very micro decisions. Like, if you don't like painting when you're a beginner, you're not going to like painting as a professional artist, you know? And I think that's another important thing to acknowledge. It's just like, you fit in at Riot because of your decisions in terms of how you make marks on a Cintiq, you know, and somebody else might just value different things, but they might really want that job, you know. And I guess it's like the idea of moving towards a goal and not necessarily getting it, but the moving towards the goal is actually going to get you a place that you would never expect to be, you know.
Yeah, certainly.
Like the Dreadbound stuff that you did back in the day. It's like that you never would have expected that would lead to anything else, but at least you weren't thinking of where it would lead.
Well, I guess I was, in a way.
Yeah,
you know.
In a sense, but it's like I think the amount of focus it requires to make something like that, it requires more than just like, I'm gonna work at Riot because I do this book, you know. It's like, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think it through and like go back to then and doing and everything. It's I guess it says something that was Dreadbound was like an independent project with just a few friends that really could have just burnt down into nothing.
Yeah.
And very nearly did a few times.
Right.
But as to say, there was no boss that was like, hey, you gotta get this stuff done, or, you know, art critics saying like, oh, this stuff is, you know, amazing, or this stuff is terrible.
Right.
It was just, you know, me and a few other guys that were just like,
we're gonna do this thing.
Yeah, we're gonna do this thing. We're gonna have to figure it out from start to finish.
Right.
And we're gonna have to commit to that whole process and invest and sacrifice things to get it done.
Right.
And then just put it out there. And there's no guarantee of glory. There's no guarantee of anybody ever seeing it. Really, it could be a waste in some regards, as some people might think about it. But I think what I'm trying to get at is that's that tying in of the appreciation of the craft, or the enjoyment of doing it.
Well, and I think believing that it doesn't matter makes it not matter. You know, I think the second you start questioning whether it matters or not is the second it actually stops mattering. You know, it's like, I think as humans, the only thing, like we were talking about earlier, the only thing that we're limited by is our vision. It's like, you know, if you walk down the street, like, do you see all of the horrible things going on, or do you see the clouds in the sky and people playing with their dogs, and like the positive or the negative side of what you see, you know? And I think the more you feed the negative side, the more you're like, oh, this dreadbound book is a waste of time. I should just pick up more hours of work. I should just like, you know, do all these other, I should just settle, you know? Yeah. It's like, once you start believing that the idea of settling is, like, you know, it's not worth taking the risk, that's when it becomes not worth taking the risk. And I meet people all the time with varying levels of great success, and the people that I know that have had some measure of success, it's not necessarily who they know, it's not necessarily like even how good they are as artists. It's about how they approach problem solving. It's about how they approach their own lives. Like, as an artist, I think the only thing we're fundamentally selling is our ideas. And when we can't believe in our own ideas, then how can we expect somebody else to?
Sure.
It's like, you know, if like your job as an artist is to convince everyone else your ideas are great, you know, and you know, you should be your first customer to convince that.
Well, I mean, it's just like with everything you're saying, you know, my brain just goes into a tangent, eight different things of like, oh, I want to talk about that, I want to dig into that, and so I'm trying to like stay focused, because I know I can really tangent out in the middle of thoughts. But
I guess part of it is like, the point of this I guess the format of it, again, it is sketchy, right? It's like, you know, because we're in the middle of a parking lot right outside your apartment, where like, again, there's like, my van is a disaster right now.
Man, that's behind the cameras. I don't know what you're talking about. That's glorious back there. Oh my god,
yeah, it's so cool.
Wow.
Right? But it's like that's actually part of the presentation. It's like this desk is slightly messy. It's like it's like trying to get as close to like how people would actually talk as possible. It's not about like TJ the like, oh, I'm, you know, trying to teach you guys something. It's like us having a real conversation.
Yeah. Because I think there's also some sort of psychological aspect of it, like for the fact that I can't sit up.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a bit of like always like
kind of.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thought experiment, but
it's kind of a practical joke, honestly. It's like you can't take somebody seriously. You can't. It's hard to put somebody up on a pedestal when they're like cramped. You know, they're kind of uncomfortable.
That's okay.
You know, that's actually part of the execution of it. It's like, you know, I don't think that you're a god. I don't think like the thing that. I'm sorry. get the fuck out of here. But it's like, I mean, when people hear like, oh, I'm an art director on this game, or I directed this TV show, or I'm, you know, made this giant business decision, or I'm an artist and I design these things, it creates this hierarchy of like, oh, I didn't do those things, so I'm below this person. But it's like the only difference between you and somebody else who didn't work on those things is just a matter of circumstance, usually, I think.
Yeah.
I think everyone talks about the same things, they joke about the same things, they're just solving, and they're trying to solve the same problems. Everyone just has different ways of solving those problems, you know.
Sure. Well, and something you mentioned just now about, you know, taps into what I always think of is like it's all, or how can I say this? Part of the reason why it was my dream to work at a place like Riot is because it is a collaborative process. Yeah. And so there are certainly days, many days, maybe the majority of time, to where I don't believe in my ideas or my technique enough to fully carry something and make it great and make it something that others want to engage with.
Right.
And that's part of what I love about working there, is that I get to bounce things off of teammates, and that we together, as a group, of creatives,
Right.
I'm not fully having to rely on myself or
Absolutely.
use myself as a core. I can bounce off my ideas off people, and they can enrich it, and then I can take their ideas and enrich it. And so together we're building something. What I always say is that we're building something greater than we ever could on our own.
Yeah,
that's the ideal.
Right.
Which there's plenty of, once you get into big companies and stuff, you're bogged down because you got to meet statistics or what is it called, like
quarterly reports and
and algorithms and this and that.
Yeah.
But in the position I'm at and the people I work with, it is, in a corporate sense, the furthest you could get from that, I think. And so that's why it works for me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's how I think my creative process is. I feel the most fulfilled is when I'm collaborating with people in general.
Absolutely.
That said, I think it's super valuable. Something we've talked about quite a bit is having this core of the day job, which just supports you, and you get creative fulfillment from, but then also doing your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Well, and there's no shame in working at a place like Taco Bell or Starbucks in order to pay the bills, to be able to do what you really want to do.
No. Yeah.
And again, I feel like the only difference between you at Riot and you 10 years ago is just like maybe just your environment, people you're surrounded by, because you're fundamentally, again, just doing the same thing you were doing before, just at a different scale. And I think ultimately it's like the like you working at Riot, you're enabled to be elevated by other people because you're all working on the same thing together. But that does not necessarily make you a better or worse artist than anyone else. And I think it takes a certain humility and certain it takes humility to be able to work on something with other people and admit that other people's ideas might be better than yours in certain cases. But also feel like your ideas can contribute to the overall project as a whole, and being able to defend those ideas.
Yeah, and also being able to step up when somebody doesn't have a good idea. And then taking that confrontation on.
And it's not necessarily, and when you're that person in those shoes, like somebody's challenging your idea and they're actually right, you back down and you're like, okay, I get that, man. Yeah, that you jam with them instead of like being their combatant.
I love those moments because I always am in a room with people who are insanely talented at this or that. And so I don't blink for a minute due to ego or anything like that, of like, no, but this was my idea, so I don't want to back down, or like I don't want to be proven wrong. It's just like, that's fucking brilliant, you're right, or thank God you unlocked this thing that I've been struggling with. Absolutely. Fine, let's just keep making it better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that has a lot to do with just like not tying, killing your ego, like not tying your self-worth to your company or self-worth to your art.
Sure.
And can imagine at a place like Riot too. I mean, the skill cap for how good people get is incredibly high.
It's always just,
it's like
getting higher. You think I'm finally catching up, and then someone's like, actually, I've been studying this thing for 8 months, and I'm now a master at it.
It's like, and it's like you can never compete with them, and it's like, and I not that you're not a good artist, but it's like people like get so specific in their interests and the way they spend their time that somebody's been doing that specific thing that you just were assigned. They've been doing that for 30 years or something. 30 years straight, 40 years straight.
That's something that I have to, again, tame the ego on, right? Because I'm on a team now in which we are always looking to expand, and it's actually quite a challenge to find new talent to fill that space. And so I'm kind of in a position to help hire new creatives, and when it comes to hiring, ego totally comes into it, because sometimes when you're in a position with a team, you don't want to give up your value at all, or there's this temptation to like, oh God, I don't want to hire someone better because I won't look as good, and my team won't value me as much, and like maybe that'll endanger my security here, you know.
Right.
And so I think you know, you have to, how would I say, you have to get back to what's best for what you're creating and the process you're part of. And so that's where you have to, a good manager or a good creator will bring in someone that's, hey, this person's even better than me at this thing. I want them in because I want them to enrich what I'm working on, because it's about what is the message we're trying to say, what is the story we're trying to tell, how are we trying to connect with people. This person's better at that, yes, bring them in. And I also get to be part of this process, and I get to learn from them.
Absolutely. And it's like, you know, all you know, all boats ride with the rising tide or something, you know. And I feel like those kind of, like, to me, working in the arts industry as an artist is counterproductive, or training to be an artist is counterproductive to the way it actually is, because my impression of art school is that it does promote a lot of negative competition, you know. It's like there is a competition to get into schools that is kind of, you know, or I guess to get the approval of teachers, or to get, you know, into certain parties or any of that kind of stuff. And it costs so much just to be part of the club that, you know, just to train, to go to Art Center, to go to LCAD, to go to any of those schools, that it, you know, might make somebody feel almost like entitled to a job, or they feel like, I don't know, it might be it might not prepare them in the correct way, you know, but they're being paid, they're paying an enormous amount of money to get the skills and get the connections and all that kind of stuff. And again, I don't know exactly where I'm going with that, but it's like, I think that when I look at these kind of high pressure creative environments, they're never, in my experience, they're never like crunch hours all the time. People are being mean to each other. It's never that kind of competition. It is that kind of positive, like, oh, that person's way better than me, let's get them involved, you know, versus the, oh, that person's way better than me, let's try everything in my power to make sure they don't get hired, you know.
Well, I've witnessed both.
Yeah.
In my, you know, history of professionalism, I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess the environments that I would want to work in. They're never like that. You know?
Yeah.
And I guess the high end ones where you're making things that are being seen by millions of people. It's like, I don't know what it's like to work on big Star Wars movies or big, you know, Marvel movies, but I'd imagine it's pretty relaxed, pretty. I mean, not relaxed, but
yeah.
You know.
From what I hear, you know, like, of course, the teams I've worked with have been kick-ass. I hear I think the Marvel crew, like the visual development crew for the MCU and stuff, are like super tight, just like kind people. Yeah. First and foremost, and hella talented, and that kind of mentality of just like, let's make something good. And authentic. Yeah. Well, and again, it's like going back to the art school thing, like,
again, like I think your mindset for that kind of humility is a bigger reason why you know, have gotten the work that you've gotten versus the degrees or the credentials that you've had. You know, it's like a mindset and like an appreciation for quality that allows you to get there versus. You know.
You know, I think that's where the personality comes so much into it, and it's something that when I was trying to make my way in the industry, I never knew how much that accounted for. You know, I always just try to be a good human being, the best I can be, you know, internally and to others, sort of thing. And it wasn't until I made it that I understood what that meant, right? Because when, you know, a lot of you know, I took in every YouTube art video that I could as like the gospel. Pretty much, I'd watch all like the Art Cafe, Anthony Jones video, like the robot pencil stuff. The Cynics, you know, Robert's stuff and all that. Like, I just ingested as much as I could when I was trying to make it, because I was always looking like, what's the gem, what's the secret that all these guys have figured out. Aside from everyone I listed is just fucking amazing at art, but then what you'll tend to get to is like, you gotta have the fundamentals, you gotta do this and this, and sorry, I know we're going into getting a job in the industry, which is not what we can do, but just the personal experience with it. what I see human is that you get to this point where like, okay, yeah, you have to have the skill, that's like a given,
right.
But then you have to have personality. You have to be a good personality, and then it's like, what does that mean?
Right.
And I think what that means, like, really, if you're just like passionate about what it is you're applying to do, and then if you're just like a good human being who wants the best for each other, like that's really what it's not like you have to entertain people interviewing you or other artists or whatever, or make them laugh necessarily. Like that stuff helps, sure, but it's about, I don't know,
the actual genuine connection.
Yeah, you get far further with people being genuine,
right,
and just being you.
Yeah. Excuse me. Well, and I guess we are talking about job stuff, but I think it relates directly because I guess I try to talk to people a lot about, like, you know, how do they achieve their dreams? You know, because Riot is a dream job for you. You know.
Is that okay then?
Oh, yeah, we're recording on multiple.
Is that dead?
Yeah, it's dead. But okay, so we don't need this anymore.
Oh no!
I can leave it here just for.
I like how it's like the quality's gonna go from booming bass to like.
Yeah, well, we have the phone and we have the Zoom mic and the iPad.
Okay. Sorry. Cool. So sorry, King.
But yeah, I think it's like I talk to so many variety of people, you know, and I guess I try to talk to people who have achieved a version of a dream, you know. Like working at Riot is obviously not like. I'd imagine you're not completely content, but you're like, oh, this is pretty sick. You know, it's pretty awesome. You know,
man. You know, sorry, if you have a point to get to, please.
Oh no. And
again, tangents, just
tangents forever, for days. But I think it's like I guess that was the end of the thought.
Okay, so I can go into that because I know this is something we've talked a lot about, and I like a lot of my friends and colleagues. Seems like a big topic amongst us, which is like what I actually encounter more often than not is this idea of the people who've made it, and say they're working on like Riot, Ubisoft, and Lucasfilm, something like that. They get jaded and they're like, oh, like, you know, they get burnt out or something like that. And I totally understand where those people are coming from, but it's something I contemplated on a lot, and quite a few of our close contacts actually are like, fuck that sort of thing. And I can say, like, I'm pretty dang fulfilled, creatively and
awesome,
life wise.
So happy to hear that.
Yeah, and it's like, I know in the past we've talked, and I've been kind of like, you know, because you're very much of the state of being like, be your own business, essentially, your own artist, and create your own empire based on you and your ideas. You should own everything, be independent. And I'm like, yeah, that all sounds really good. And so I've been kind of like, am I a sheep? And am I like a shill working at this big company? But, you know, now I can confidently say, like, no, it's pretty damn fulfilling because it's, you know, I think in part it's from where I come from, you know, coming from like Phoenix, Arizona. I didn't move to California until 2016, the very beginning of 2016. And so I lived a long life. I think I don't remember. I was in like mid-20s, I guess, when I moved. So I lived in Arizona, you know, Phoenix, for that whole chunk of my life. And there wasn't like an artistic community. There's like, you know, I kind of make fun of it. There was like a lot of nice castings of cowboys and Indians in copper, and like paintings of Navajo style thing that's just ripped from a totally, you know, not connected culture to the people doing it. You know, it's kind of a.
I get you, man.
There's I should say. Sorry, I'm getting
I'm gonna
saucy.
have some of those people on the podcast.
no. Well, I'm sure they're legitimate.
They're awesome.
Legitimate.
There's I understand.
Authenticity is very important, I think, and that it was severely lacking. And there was certainly, you know, not saucy. There was no entertainment. Art.
And then that's the stuff you were interested in.
Yeah, and I just always knew I was into cartoons. I was into video games. I loved that stuff. I was super passionate. So, and I even went to college, you know, and tried to study that, and there was just no support for it. So I essentially lived the majority of my life salivating for that kind of work and that kind of community, and just having other artists and creatives that actually cared about this stuff as much as me. Like, I learned, you know, well, you know, like I had a bit of a rough childhood and stuff, and like really gruesome divorce and like stuff like that.
Right.
So a lot of times art was my escape, and I kind of, because I didn't have much of a foundation, I actually got a lot of my moral system and backbone and philosophies on life from like anime and movies and film and stuff like that. Right. That's kind of how I actually built up, I guess, my moral fiber, or whatever you want to say. A lot of my personality, my sense of humor, all that stuff. Yeah, it was like really from TV and films and games. Yeah. And so I think that's, for me, finally getting to indulge in this and be a part of it.
Right.
As an adult, I'm finally getting that opportunity. I made that jump, and I was able to jump in, and it's all here for me. It's extremely gratifying. It's extremely fulfilling, and it brings me so much joy and humility to, well, it brings me so much joy to be able to contribute to it now for that kid or that person that's going through the same shit. Yeah. And just to be part of my gospel in a way. Right. But then also, I remain super humble because I'm constantly surrounded by
amazing
gods,
people.
like colossi of the craft and stuff. And you know, it's all here. Whether, you know, I like painting digitally, but I also like sketching. I also like you know, making stuff with clay. I like painting. I like doing flower arrangements. I like interior design. Anything I could want to ever touch, there's someone who can stomp me in skill. Or
absolutely. And I think that's a nihilistic way of saying it, talking about that stuff, because we're talking about the educational stuff, but it's like, you know, the way that you would present something if you were teaching would be completely different from the way somebody else would be teaching. Even you could be teaching the same exact lesson, but it'd be applied to completely different problems. Where, you know, you would teach gesture, and maybe you would explain how it relates to floral design. Where if I was teaching gesture, it would be how it relates to, I don't know, like, you know, fine art, Western paintings or something, you know? Yeah. And it's like, sure, we're like teaching the same thing kind of, but it's like completely different uses for it. Like, it essentially becomes a different tool, you know? And I guess it's like, we meet tons of people who, like, you know, people who are jaded at working at these big companies, you know? And I think it's like not necessarily like right or wrong to do either thing. It's more just based on your personality. You know, it's like, you know, you can work at Riot and you can not work at Riot, and both live both validating lives. You know, and I guess it's almost like you don't need to ask for permission in order to live your best life. You know, like I meet people who. This is a really common thing. I mean, tons of people who feel like they have to go work at a company in order to do the things they really want to do. Yeah. It's like once they get the validation of an art director, they get some big projects under their belt, that's when they can start being creative, you know? And I meet the people that are the opposite. It's like, oh, I need to, you know, have a ton of subscribers, or I need to, like, you know, make my art like the best it could possibly, like way more amazing than everyone else before I can even think about contributing to a big project. You know? Yeah. And I guess the thing that I'm trying to get around, and the thing I'm trying to figure out, and if I could help other people figure out, is like how to stop asking for permission to be creative, you know? Sure.
Or the validation of why it matters, or
it's like,
is it valuable?
If you decide it matters, it matters.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, you draw anime boys, you know, you draw anime girls. It's like,
man, that's
pay your bills with anime girls and boys.
Yes, you know? Very awesome. Well, probably maybe even better than me, frankly. What? You know, like drawing anime girls or like furry or something like that.
Well, no, you can, you know, draw anime boys and girls and, like, again, have a nice life. You know, take care of you and your wife and your dog and cat, and have an apartment, and, you know, like, you know, you can maybe do it better than if you were like a plumber, you know, or something. And it's like, you know, just by following that genuine interest of drawing anime boys and girls, you know, you're able to like create a meaningful life for yourself, you know. And again, to me, that's like, you know, it is about that humility and those like fundamental values that you are paying attention to. And it's almost like having enough self-respect for yourself to say that you're allowed to draw anime boys for a living, you know.
I get the feeling that kind of comes from your perspective of, I think you've been a lot more involved in like the classical side of art, and certainly if you're going to through classical education or like a school, which I got quite a bit, which was like, oh, you can't draw that anime stuff. You can't,
absolutely.
Like, it's all the same. It's not art. You get all these different things, and it's like
not as valid,
nowadays you can see like, no, fuck you, man. It is. It's all art. It's what you do. There's all these, maybe you can't see the nuances of it, but it is, and it doesn't discount what classical is. I can still,
they're both awesome.
I mean, Day and I, we were talking about how much we love the Getty, and we could just sit there, in front of like a sergeant or something, and just
look at it.
Just be impacted by it. But at the same time, I love like Cowboy Bebop. And
absolutely.
There's this. Oh man, it was so cool. We had at Riot, we had this kind of community seminar thing the other day, to where one of our lead animators was showing us the difference between in animation, the use of force versus the use of life, I think it was called, and he was digging into the differences between essentially Western animation and like Eastern animation or anime, and the principles of how they do it. Just fucking fascinating, and that's so high level to me, and that's so academic in its own sense, and it's human. It's connecting human wise. That I don't know where I started with this, but I think it's foolish to try and limit it.
Absolutely.
But and it's also to say that it's also to say, especially nowadays, I think me growing up, and probably even you, and going through education and classical training in art, like when I was growing up as a kid, I had a lot of people telling me like, oh, drawing cartoons and stuff is cool, but the only like prospect you have going into that is being like a starving artist out on a pier painting sad clowns or something like pathetic, something it's gonna ruin you, and even parents a bit being like, oh, like I just want you to be happy. No way, man. Artists are on top of the world. There's art everywhere in everything you do, and even in just like painting stuff and doing the kind of anime or game art or entertainment art that we love, there's just so many venues to make it work. I mean, there's and that's also tapping into that idea that we kind of hit earlier, which is like, if people are an artist and they're growing up and they want to do art, nowadays there's this idea that you have to go work for a studio and do something, and that's not even true anymore. That used to be the case like a few years ago. Is like, if you want to do art, you're either going to be a starving artist, or you go into like Blizzard, or you somehow get into the union for film, or that whatever that mysterious brother. But nowadays it's like, no, you can do commissions on Twitter, you can have a Patreon.
You can teach. You could,
and it's a matter of, the world is so big and so connected. There's NFTs too, which is a whole nother realm, but amazing potential. But it's also to say what you want to draw. The world is so connected, and people just more and more, I think humanity is becoming a bit more transparent, just bit by bit. In which, if you like, sorry, I'll just finish this
totally fine.
If you just like drawing like burly bear men, and you just fucking love it, then just do it 110%, because you're gonna find
something,
people that will essentially support your livelihood,
and own it too,
and love it, and love it more than you think you're a fan of it, you think you like to do it, and they will be like, I need more of your work, because I think people are just connecting in that way, and starting to really own what it is they love, and I love to see it. I mean, and it's a matter of like, man, whatever you can think of it, in the same regard of like what like Rule 34 or whatever. Well, there's the rule of like, if you want to make a thing, there's probably a good sum of people who would support you doing it.
Well, so somebody, I mentioned furry porn in pretty much every podcast now.
Great.
And somebody was picking on me in the comments because I mentioned furry porn all the time. But as an art form, I admire it because it's so like the way the average social person would see that would be like, that's disgusting or a waste of time or something. But their entire community is just based around that kind of art.
Well, fuck it, that person's probably into it more than
hell yeah. Yeah, probably. But I think it's like the fact that any art form can exist and you can find meaning in it. It's like, again, going back to the art school being counterproductive to being creative, thing. It's like you don't need to train it. You don't need to go to art center and train for 10 years to be able to work on big movies. You don't need to go to GCA or Watts or any of these fancy academic schools in order to do fine art. It's like, sure, going to those places will help, but there's also like potentially a fear in just staying there too long and getting way too into the like asking for permission of other people. And again, like for anyone listening to this, no matter how niche you think that your interests are, there is a genuine interest in it. It's like I live in a van. I live in a van and I have been driving around the country for 4 months, and I have 500 subscribers now. I'm slowly building an audience. It's like never 500 fucking people. It's not nothing.
I mean, that taps into what you probably hear a lot, which is like just make the stuff.
Yeah, you just make it and see what happens.
Is that James Gurney? Is that what that is?
I'm sure it's like
I don't remember who I originally heard from, but it's just make stuff.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no. They'll comment about it.
Yeah. They'll correct you.
No. What's his face?
Adolf Hitler.
Oh God, no. No, don't be. We specifically no.
No Nazis.
Fuck. No, he wrote like Good Omens.
Is
really popular author.
The Alchemist guy, or
I don't
know, but Paulo. I don't know. I think there are cliches of creativity.
He wrote Sandman.
What?
He wrote Sandman.
The comic?
Yeah. Neil Gaiman.
Neil. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah,
he did a speech, and so that's what I'm quoting. Yeah. So just make stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's like every person I know who I really look up to creatively, at least for my own specific tastes. And I look at them, it's like none of them went to school. None of them went to art school, or they went to art school and they dropped out, or they went to art school and they're like, don't go to art school, and it's like, again, if you're in art school, I'm not saying to drop out necessarily, but I guess it's like give yourself permission to be able to be the person that you want to be, like be creative, like just again make something like Dreadbound, even though it's like the conventional advice you might have been getting is go to business school, or get like a real degree, it's like do something real with your life, but like you are providing value by creating the art that you're creating, and again, it's I think the point of art is to make people's lives, to make them feel better about themselves, make them feel less anxious overall, and
sorry, about people creating art
I think
for themselves or for people to see? For
people to see. I think I guess for everybody involved, the act of making the art should be an anxiety relieving process, something that doesn't take away from you as a net negative, for the viewer and for the actual creator, and
are you saying, I guess, do you acknowledge that as an objective thing?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I at least that's what I see as the goal of it. I mean, there are plenty of people that are doing it in a way that is a net negative for their own lives, I think.
Yeah, I would almost argue that's kind of subjective.
Well, I guess it's like in terms of I guess the way I see art, at least my own subjective view, is that it should be something that provides like an escape from reality for people's lives. They get to think about this thing. They get to like share this idea, and I see plenty of really good draftsmen that don't necessarily have confidence in their own ideas.
Have confidence in their own ideas. Can you
like
extrapolate?
Like they're so caught up in the draftsmanship that they're not communicating anything. Just like the act of having a really good drawing is the art.
Yeah.
Or they want to communicate different ideas, but they're almost like I'm thinking out loud.
Please.
Just trying to rationalize this real time, but I think it's like
sorry.
Jeez. The point of art is to make people's lives better. I think I guess that is a subjective opinion, but
sounds thoroughly subjective.
Yeah.
But own it completely.
Yeah.
I actually want to understand it more.
Well, and when somebody looks at your art and you don't believe in it, I think it comes across. It might not come across consciously, but somebody might not be able to get involved in your piece of artwork as much as somebody else's who is more committed to their own ideas. And like, I think people are rewarded not based on the quality of their art, but the ability that they're willing to commit to it. Because if you're unwilling to commit to your own ideas, how can you expect somebody else to commit to yours?
Yeah, sure. But I don't know. Like, I certainly understand where you're coming from as a creator.
Yeah.
But it's been said plenty of times before, but you don't really have any ownership of how people interact with your art once it's created.
Oh yeah.
And whether there's plenty of things that I've looked at and I'm like, I think that's completely vapid.
Right.
And, null of any meaning or any skill or something like that. And then someone else is like, I want to hang that over my bed because I want to wake up and see it every morning.
Well, that's the beauty. Somebody would look at your art and feel that, and somebody would look at your art and feel the other thing. Feel it's great or not great. And I guess it's like, the goal is to try to hit as many people as you want to hit. It might be one person, it might be a million people, it might be everybody. But you're like, my personal belief is that I think that art is all trying to communicate the same idea. Just saying, it's like different languages. It's like Phil Hale is a brilliant painter. He's like my favorite living painter.
Oh, really?
But his stuff is really dark and brutal. Whereas like I don't know, like Esben's stuff, it's less dark and brutal than Phil Hale's stuff. So
that dude is dark. I mean, like,
Esben is known for just being the darkest person.
Yeah.
But and I guess it's like Esben's stuff is very lighthearted and very optimistic, and and I think that again, they're like communicating just their souls to the world, just in different ways.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of I saw this comparison recently of a really prolific anime artist. So there's Hayao Miyazaki, who did the Ghibli stuff, which is generally seen as positive and cute and bouncy, kind of on the outside. And then there is what's his name? The guy who does the real popular horror manga.
Did he do Berserk or something? Or
no, he did R.I.P. But he did like the Swirls one. He does like the horror manga.
Okay.
But pretty much people were making the comparison, which was kind of funny, of like you have Ghibli, which is always colorful and it has like this really calming aesthetic to it and pleasant. It's all very pleasant, isn't it? And Hayao's kind of like always smoking, like, fuck this, like anime culture, and like, oh, fuck this life, misery is life, sort of thing. And then you see the work he does. Yeah. And then this horror manga artist, you see he does like, it's a lot of black and white, really twisted ideas and swirls and really obscure stuff. People are gonna hate the fact that I don't remember his name.
Kojima?
Huh?
No, okay, like he's the video game guy.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
No, but he does like Guro, I think it's called, like the genre. But he's like this super happy, like, positive guy, and then he does this traumatizing level of work. So I think I don't necessarily have like a point in mind, but I think it's just an interesting observation. It's just I like to kind of run by you because it's kind of like we start to have these ideas of this means that and this is that, but art is just so
complicated.
It's a complicated thing. It's also such a free-flowing thing.
Well, and I guess the part of this podcast is like thinking things out loud, like because I'm going to say things that are completely wrong, and I'm going to look back on certain things and like, oh, I was completely wrong about that.
I mean, you're gonna get canceled like 3 times.
Maybe. Say some.
Get woke, bro. Woke. Do you want to relight the thing or?
So it's since it's so hot.
Oh jeez! Wow. Oh, that's cool.
So you're not supposed to relight it after.
Because it'll melt the table.
Oh no! I think there's like a fire hazard or something.
Oh, okay.
Are you cold though?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm heated up with creative discussion.
Maybe we could close the window or the door.
Nah. Sorry, keep going. I'm distracted.
But I think it's like I feel like for most of my life in terms of these kind of creative endeavors, I've been in like shit. That means it's dead.
We're just slowly losing equipment.
which is the Sketchy van, you know.
Oh my god. Okay, look, if things do die out and want to pick this up, we can totally take our stuff and go up to the apartment.
Well, we have the iPad. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's I've been in like analysis paralysis for a lot of my life with these sort of projects specifically. It's like feeling like I have to get all the equipment I need, like all the nicest cameras, all the best type of van, the nice table. You know, it's like all of these. This is Stan's camera that he used to shoot his first videos from like 10 years ago. Yeah. And that's Marshall's camera that he just wasn't using. So. Exposure. So he's like, hey, I'm not using this. Take it for this thing that you're trying to do.
That's really nice.
And I got this microphone from Alvin Veselka when I was driving through Idaho and read with him. And it's like, oh yeah, just take this mic. It's like, oh, mic. Yeah,
that's really cool. That, kind of stop along and get these. You're kind of having your own Lord of the Rings journey. And you take a thing from this and a cloak from that.
That's that blanket right there is Scott's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I have these little mementos, and then the drawing board, obviously, but. And then I think but I feel like the quality of what I'm saying is not influenced by the quality of the like actual production of it, you know.
Okay.
And I think a lot of like what I was waiting for is almost like permission to start, because I don't think there ever would have been a case where I would have had enough equipment or I would have had enough stuff in order to feel like I was worthy of being able to actually record a podcast. You know? It's like, oh, no one will care what I have to say, or I'm not a good enough artist, or it's like there's always that internal dialogue speaking that's trying to talk yourself into irrelevance. You know?
It's the same. I experience it a lot with the creation of Dreadbound. I still experience it with every art piece I do still.
And I think a lot of it has to do with just like saying, like, stop being a little bitch, you know? It's like, stop saying that you can't do things. I think it's actually immoral to do that. Like, you wouldn't treat somebody else as badly as you treat yourself, you know? Like, if you are another human being, right? So you shouldn't treat yourself that way. Like,
sure, because you'll say this, someone will be down, and you tell them this, and they're like, no, I'm just shit, or like, what do I have to say, and this and that, and you're like, well, would you say that about me? And they're like, oh god, no, you're amazing.
Right.
So you're saying to kind of like believe in yourself in that way.
Well, and I think it's actually unethical to treat yourself that badly, you know, because it's like if you treat yourself badly, then it's like you know, like if you're self-deprecating to yourself and somebody observes that, then it's like, oh, if that person feels like they're a piece of shit, then what hope do I have? You know? And I noticed that just, you know, among some people where it's like they feel like you know, they feel like their self-deprecating attitude doesn't affect anyone other than themselves, which is, I just think that's just not true. You know?
You know, I think a lot of my the artists I admired growing up, a lot of them were like manga artists, and there is an inherent culture of like self-deprecation kind of there, or that's what I took, like, oh, if I'm going to be like these guys, I need to be self-deprecating, and then I just really internalized that because it's easy to fall into,
part of the
you
culture,
know? And just in ourselves to lack confidence, that was my default. So it was pretty bad for a long time. But what I realized is you know, if your work is just fucking amazing and people can't deny how amazing you are, then you can get by doing that, kicking yourself down for whatever reason you would want to.
Actually, I think that's a curse, you know, because it's like if you're amazing, but you still feel like it's not enough, then it's like I would actually way rather be somebody who's like not high up, but also feels good about who I am, you know?
True, because then are you ever going to be happy or fulfilled even by anything if you're truly committed to that self-deprecation? But what I found and tried to practice more often actually is I still have that self-deprecation inside, and it can get bad, but I've much more adopted the philosophy of just make the stuff, right? That part of the philosophy of just make stuff,
right?
And then I don't put any subjective take on it when I do things. Right. It's just, I don't say like, oh fuck, like, oh,
thanks for coming and looking at my stuff, and like it's really shit. So you don't even need to look at it. I'm so embarrassed that you're looking.
Like not doing that shit anymore. But also not being like, yo, oh, check out this shit. It's your boy putting out a new piece. It's gonna change your brain. And that stuff was like, wow. It's just putting the stuff out, and then I just really try to hold neutral when somebody encounters the piece, because I want to just truly connect with like, what do you think about that piece? How do you feel?
Hello. Hi, how's it going?
Hello. I had a question.
Yeah, what's up?
You said, who's the people for the charge that pay for the charge the ticket for?
They just have the machines.
So there's a machine.
Yeah. But I come for the marry the people on the boat.
Okay.
Yeah, we needed when the guy he told me he don't need to pay.
I paid, but it's like $6 for a day or something. I don't know if you need to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's that sort of thing that there's a machine there. We don't know if you actually need to.
Sorry.
It's probably a good idea, but I don't know.
Best of luck. The gamble.
Sketchy bit podcast.
That was pretty sketchy.
Awesome. And it's that self-deprecating, like, oh, I'm not good enough,
Well, because there's like, I think it can become manipulative in a sense, which is, what do you truly believe? Because there's also a matter of, you could say, if I'm self-deprecating, it lowers people's standards, so when they see it, they're like, oh no, buddy, you're actually really good.
Right.
No, I'm gonna tell my friend, I don't know. There's a whole, I think it like everything we're talking about, the topic itself, it expands, and so me personally, I just put the work out there and just describe it as it was, how I enjoyed doing it or didn't, maybe, or what the piece means. A lot of times I'm doing work that's essentially like marketing to link to other things, so I just talk about like, hey, here's this piece, I did it for this thing, go check out this amazing cinematic that my team just did, and then people will let you know what they think of it, and then that's the next level of doing this thing, putting yourself out there, which is, can you take the criticisms, or are you going to get a big head when you get the glory?
Well, and something I ask everybody is like, would you be doing exactly the same thing you're doing right now if you had $1 billion?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then you should probably keep doing that thing. If the answer is no, maybe you should change it. But it's more so like there's no point at which you're finished. I realize that. It's like there's no point at which you do a piece of artwork and you're like, oh, I'm done. I've become the artist I want to be. Now I can stop. It's like if you ever get to that place, it's probably a bad place to be in. Because that means you can't enjoy doing art anymore. And I think the human experience is way more about the next thing that you're going to do versus the thing that you just accomplished. Which is both tragic in a sense because you'll never be fully satisfied, but also amazing because you'll never be bored. You always have a place to go. You always have a thing to do. Like even if you gain your fortune and you suddenly gain all this money and fame and fortune, it's like. What do you do? Do you continue to make images, or do you make a TV show, or do you make your own game studio or whatever? It's like there is another level of progression you can always move to.
I think that's quite a struggle, is to appreciate, when you do have a win or when you do reach a goal. I understand it's the whole thing of like, it's about the journey, not the destination, right? And I think that's pretty tough to figure out, to balance that. You should be able to say like, yes, I'm glad that I got here, and like soak it in, and like really like, this is what I thought it was going to be, or this wasn't what I thought I was going to be, and go from there. But I do feel like a lot of times, we're just like, oh, I got there, and you don't even really get to acknowledge that you got there. You're just like, oh God, what's the next thing? I gotta keep
you have to keep moving, right? And again, I think it's there are two ways of looking at that. It's like, oh, nothing matters, I'm just gonna be on the grind forever. But or the other way of, again, looking at it is like, oh man, that's amazing, like I can always paint, I always have a thing to do. It's like I always have a way of expressing myself. It's like, I'm sure if you broke your hands and you couldn't paint anymore, you'd find some other creative outlet.
Yeah, for
Dance
sure.
or sing or, you know.
Yeah, because it's all relative.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're all just communicating ideas. You know? And, like, as it relates to us as people, again, that's what I'm always trying to get to. It's like falling in love with being in the moment, falling in love with being in love with the process of just being okay with where you're at, just being okay with like no matter who you are, whether you're a famous illustrator or a complete beginner student, the act of putting down a stroke is the exact same thing. It's the exact same experience. And the only thing that separates a master illustrator and a beginner is their decision making, you know. And a master illustrator can only make better decisions because they have years and years of experience that the beginner doesn't have. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
It's just line mileage, essentially. You know? And looking at it that way, I think it's easier to not put people on like negative pedestals. You know, it's a lot easier to not worship them because they're just making the same They're actually making more mistakes than you are. You know, they're just making the mistakes faster and better. You know,
Fail fast, right?
Yeah. And like, I think the right thing to do in your life is to accept as much responsibility as you're willing to take on. You know, it's like you don't want to take on too much too early because then you'll have a very chaotic life. You won't know how to handle it. You'll fail, and you don't want to take on too little because then you'll be like, I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. For you, it's like maybe just doing portrait studies or skull studies for the next 10 years is a waste of your time. You'd get bored with that, you know. Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually kind of getting back to a lot of that right now. To where with a lot of the pieces I've done lately, I'm always like, whenever I do a piece, which for better or worse, this isn't necessarily something that I'd recommend to people like aspiring artists, is whenever I do a piece that's like even like a job piece, whether it's, you know, like a company piece, I always try to do something that's like, oh, I've never done this kind of thing before, I want to try that out. Or I'm obsessed with this kind of color palette or this kind of rendering style, I'm gonna use that in my piece. Some people might recommend that you save that for your own personal work, but I try to, you know, I do it just to keep myself inspired, and it's just like I only have a limited amount of time to make art in my life, so I'm always trying to compact as many things as I can into each piece I do. So I do quite a bit of that, but I'm actually trying to, in my own personal time, I'm trying to get back to just painting, you know, just pretty stuff, and just studying light and values, structure, form, shape, value, understanding colors better. Just getting back to basics is really what I'm doing. But then I do want to do some really like pivotal collections of my lifetime at the same time. So just not enough time in the day. Yeah,
I think. Well, but I also think it's also silly in the sense where it's like the only thing they're ever doing is like applying simple tools to very complex solutions. It's like the act of drawing, like painting a beautiful painting, is just a series of very simple decisions one after another. It's like, is that color and value relationship the one I want? It's like the act of saying, is that thing bigger than that thing, is an objectively easy decision to make. Or is that value darker than that value? It's like, is this table wider than this ottoman? You know, it's like, okay, yes. You know, but having to make those decisions, having to make 100,000 of those decisions one after another, that's where the complexity comes in. You know? And again, you're just applying these simple concepts to these.
You know what? I think you're also hitting on why I'm doing a bit more of that, because it's that whole thing of when you're learning art, you don't, you know, if you're like a novice artist and you admire a lot of this amazing stuff, you don't want to try and do a super anatomical drawing that also has amazing color theory, and also you like have the perfect lighting, and then, you know, also like it's super fashionable, and you want everybody to like it on the internet or whatever when you post it. You kind of want to take each one of those as like bite-sized tasks, right? And so I think since a lot of the, you know, professional work I'm doing right now is that like bigger than life, better than the last one sort of thing, I think I'm finding a lot of kind of like solace, like peace in
absolutely
just focusing on the one thing again.
And I think I think life is simple, but not. I think it's simple but difficult. You know, it's like it is a series of just humbling yourself enough to go back to the fundamentals, and go back to simplifying things, and going back to like just enjoying a walk. You know, walk that walk.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, one of my favorite things to do in my life is to drive around and listen to music. You know, and whether I'm doing it in my $3,000 van or in a
Whoa, flex, bro.
or a $100,000 Tesla or something, the act of listening to the music is actually pretty similar. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the same music and just driving around, and there are diminishing returns. And it's like your ability to appreciate that doesn't. You don't gain the ability to appreciate that more with more resources. You know, and nicer things.
I think audiophiles would disagree with you.
Well, I
Tesla owners would disagree.
I guess so. I mean,
But-
maybe I'm missing out on something, but
Well,
I get like
that's your
80% of the
personal
experience. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think I personally would agree with you. I don't know if someone else would disagree, but like, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
You mentioned diminishing returns,
Yeah.
and that's the key to it, right?
Right. Yeah, there are diminishing returns on everything. It's like how much do you study from the fundamentals versus doing the stuff you want to do? How much do you study the things you want to do versus fundamentals? How much money do you need to make your life better? It's often very little.
Yeah.
How many cupcakes before cupcakes become gross? You know, it's like not that many cupcakes. It's like 1 is good, but 10 is too many. So I think.
Yeah. For me, I would agree.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. Somebody out there
is kind of subjective, but
be like, we're just getting started.
yeah. We've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes.
Cool. Okay, so we're warmed up now.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go for another 10 hours?
I mean, as long as we have something to talk about.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting.
Absolutely.
I feel like.
I like your phone case.
Oh, thank you.
Cool phone case.
Thanks.
I've been thinking about getting. Is that the 10 or 11 or? I have
This
no idea
is
which one that is.
the 12.
I have no idea which iPhone we're on now.
We're on 13 now.
Okay. I was thinking about
Yeah.
getting a new one.
Yeah.
The battery
it's-
it's dying quicker on this thing.
Well, the camera's really nice. That's the thing about.
Okay.
I think that the most jump that iPhones tend to make nowadays is in their cameras. Like my wife just got the 13 and it has bigger cameras. I'm
Crazy.
like, I want that. But
Crazy
no,
cameras.
it's already, you know.
See the moon.
I'm one of those people who the last one I had was a 6.
Yeah.
So
Okay, yeah,
I use it until it completely corrodes.
Every doubling of it, you switch. So
I
your
guess
your
so.
next iPhone is the 24, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. So you
This
have
thing's
12
gotta last me a
years.
while.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to go about it. I mean, it's, I don't think my phone, at least in terms of the utility of it, is different from your phone in any way. You know,
For what we're using it for, because even like
YouTube videos and Google
Yeah.
Maps. Like,
it matters in maybe like the mobile gaming. There's some like
Yeah,
nice new.
I would just go on a
little
computer,
things.
honestly. If I was
Yeah,
gonna-
I'm that kind of person too. I'm much more just like, I'm gonna wait to do this thing until I get back to my PC.
Yeah.
But I like having the big screen and the immersive thing.
The fancy, the headphones.
But others may argue that those things are just diminishing returns.
Oh yeah.
You're getting the same experience.
You could just, enjoy everything on your phone. Yeah. Which is true, I guess, to a degree. So.
Quite a bit. Like the brand new Wild Rift. No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
yeah. I'm gonna start playing TFT.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Let me know what you think.
Absolutely, man.
The team working on it is just like endlessly just toying with it, making new puzzles and stuff.
Yeah,
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But I mean, aside from going down that whole of like talk about product, maybe something we could touch on is kind of like that enjoyment of simple things. Like before our talk here, we were just, when we were walking down here, we mentioned kind of like, oh, we're kind of getting back into games a bit more, because I had this sense of when I would start playing a game, I can quickly fall into, oh, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
I should be practicing art. I should be doing this, getting better at art. I'm being left behind. Everyone else is still growing, and I'm sitting here wasting my time with games. But there's definitely a value of enjoying the thing that you're part of making.
Absolutely.
Like I said, my whole upbringing, as far as I'm concerned, was film and game.
Yeah.
And you know, if I don't take some time to enjoy that stuff, I'm kind of losing a bit of myself.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, and I grew up playing games too, and I think that like the goal for me is to never feel anxious or guilty about the way I'm spending my time, whether it's like doing something that is like useless or something that is useful. Like, if I am guilty about it in some way, then I should probably stop doing it.
What do you think about like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna like level up my characters and I'm gonna play a few games, chat with a few friends.
That's the best, man.
Versus I'm gonna go skydiving right now off of fucking Mount Rushmore. That's the thing. Because I know that's you're kind of in this point of life to where you've been touring around in the van, and you've been embracing that like the van life,
right.
and the
always
like
going,
you don't do it this way, but kind of like the Instagram, like oh look, I'm in this really exotic location, I'm living the best life, and your life sucks.
Right.
I know that's not your perception of it, but there's this like culture of that right now. So what do you think of that? Like, I'm gonna just spend some time in this fantasy world doing this thing that's I'm gonna spend $30 on a cosmetic thing in this non-existent world versus I'm gonna go, you know, skydiving.
Well, I think you should do whatever the fuck you want. Like, there's no reality that's more valuable or higher up than another reality. You know, it's all just subjective to you. And it's like, sometimes I'll spend days doing crazy shit, just like ride my bike 100 miles, or I'll like, you know, go rafting or jump off a bridge into water. It's like I'll do like things that are out of my comfort zone. But then I'll also like just sit around and fucking play video games, play Skyrim for 12 hours. You know? And it's like, both are okay, you know? And I think that the variety of the human experience, I think the human experience is only subjective, honestly. Like, when you look at a hammer, you don't see the atoms, you don't see the iron, you don't see the wood that makes up the handle, you see a hammer, you know? It's like when you look at this table, this is a table before it's just a hunk of plastic and metal, you know? This microphone is not, you know, it's a microphone, it's a way to record our voices, it's not necessarily like a microchip, and like it's a bunch of other things, but it's also mainly a microphone, you know? But it's dead. It was, the battery was at half charge, but I'll finish the thought before I change it out. But I think it's like, just enjoy your life, man. You don't have that much time on the planet, you know? It's like, you're 33 now, right? Yeah. If you live until you're 80, you have 50.
Are you gonna die?
No, sorry. But like hypothetically, if you were going to die at 80, you know, you have 47 years left.
That's like in like 500 years. 500
million years.
Yeah.
You're well.
I'm gonna watch the sun burn out.
Yeah. In 500 years. Yeah. You know? But
spoiler alert.
But it's like, you know, you only have so much time on the earth. You know, it's like, just decide what matters to you and go do it. Like, again, the variety of the human experience is there are people that make furry porn for a living, to being bodybuilders, to being politicians, to being everything in between, doctors, lawyers, artists. You know, it's like, if you live until you're 80, right, you have 47 years left, right? And you actually don't have 47 years of conscious time left. You have like 30 or like, you know, 24 or something, 23 and a half years of conscious time, because you're sleeping half the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then you're working a big chunk of that time. So it's like, how much time do you actually get to choose the way you spend your time? And it's like maybe 10% of your time you get to choose. And if you choose to spend your time, you know, playing video games on a phone, it's like, more power to you, you know? It's like, don't feel guilty about that. There's nothing that's higher than anything else. It's just how you feel about it, you know? And there's a price to pay for that, where it's like, by you spending time on your phone, you're giving up the ability to go work on, you know, things that might get you more clout, more credibility, more whatever. But that's only if you care about that stuff. It's only if you want it, you know? And the thing I've been telling a lot of people is, you can't force yourself to be an investment banker. Like, we have an idea of our ideal selves in our head. It's like, maybe the ideal version of you wakes up at 5:30 a.m. and goes for a 6-mile run at a 4-minute mile pace, and then reads a book, and then does art studies for 2 hours, and then, you know, eats like egg white omelet, and then draws for 12 hours, and then you just repeat that every single day until the rest of your life. But you actually just can't reconstruct yourself in that way. You just can't, you know? It's like, you can't reconstruct yourself in that ideal, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you have to spend time doing other things, you know? And I guess I was mentioning this earlier, where it's like, I would be in the most beautiful places in the world, in this country, and I would instead of choosing to go and explore the Grand Canyon or New York City or Mount Rushmore or anywhere else I was in the country, I would choose to just be on my phone, watching YouTube videos. And there's a price to pay for that, where it's like, oh, I'm not editing a video, I'm not going to this amazing hike, but ultimately it's like, I don't really want to do that right now. I just want to sit around, be relaxed and not feel any pressure to go out and do anything.
Sure. Well, is it? So you're kind of talking about doing what's your authentic self in a way. Like, there's a stadium full of people saying that this football game is really important, and you, as a human, can just say, I don't care.
I don't care at all.
This doesn't matter. And people will say that same stuff about what you care about.
Yeah.
Like, art's fucking stupid, bro. Really loud motorcycle so everybody knows how cool you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, fuck that guy. He feels super cool.
No, he's great. You're great.
He's immortalized on this podcast now, right?
Oh, yeah. He showed us.
Well, and again, it's like, there have been 108 billion fucking people that have lived on this planet, You're gonna die, right? That's true, right? And it's like, when you acknowledge that and you actually confront it, you're like, why would I spend any time that I don't want to spend fucking playing football when I don't want to play football? Why would I spend any time doing art when I don't want to be doing art? Like, again, you have a life, you have things, you have the ability to say no to being insecure, but it takes that decision to be like, I'm going to go do the thing I really care about, and that takes bravery and risk. But the thing that I realized, my version of a faith in God is like, if you actually confront who you are and follow the truest version of yourself, it will work out in a really positive way. And again, that's why I wanted to talk to you. It's like, again, I came out of my way to talk to you. It's like, I could have gone straight to California or San Diego, but I came up here and I wanted to talk to you before going home. And it's like, because I see you as somebody who's like, you might not feel like it yourself, but you didn't compromise with a lot of things in your life, and you built a meaningful life for yourself.
True.
And maybe you struggle with this sometimes, but you have the ability to look at those people that are like that stadium of 100,000 people watching that football game and being like, no, I'm okay, I just want to sit around and draw.
Yeah, true. I have faced quite a bit of that in my life personally. I know something that kind of encouraged me to go that way, and I tell a lot of people who are aspiring on their path to do what it is they want to do or be who they want to be. Actually, a long time ago, I heard Dan Levisi.
Yeah.
Familiar, the legendary artist. He had said, I think on a podcast or something a long time ago, he had talked about this whole thing where he was really having to grind against the flow of what was around him, his environment. And a lot of times we're faced, in particular, going for like a creative career or just any other notion that you want to take on, civil rights or something like that, anything. You're going against the grain, against the wave.
Right.
And his example was that so you want to be an artist, and it's really fucking hard. It can be really fucking hard, and it can seem like, when are you ever going to see the light at the end of the tunnel? Or what is my purpose? Is this really what I want to do? I'm not getting feedback I need. I don't feel good about this. But I know I really want it. And so he says, okay, well, it's really fucking hard when you fail. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go get that safe job at an office, work in a cubicle, and then when you're on your deathbed, in whatever many years of your life, are you going to be on your deathbed like, yeah, I'm glad I took the safe route. Right. I'm glad I, just folded.
Well, the answer might be yes for other people. That's the thing. That's the scary part about this.
Well, and that's where people just have to be really transparent about what matters to me. Because as a sidebar, like, there's nothing wrong with if you want to get a nice, safe, secure job for you, maybe your family. Maybe family is the most important thing to you, building it. You love doing art, but there's nothing to say that you can't have that steady, safe job, or the job that just meets your means, and then you do your art on the weekends. You get this really rigorous, high-paying job or something, so that you can buy a big fucking studio with all the paints and pigments and mediums you'd ever want. So that you can do that, and you're still a true artist. You're still, even outside being an artist, you're still pursuing your true self and what matters to you and making the best of things. There's nothing wrong with that. But his point being of are you going to go do the safe thing
Yeah.
that other people think you should be and be satisfied with that when it's all coming to an end? No.
Yeah.
You got to do what you believe in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you keep trying, you keep working for that thing you want, you keep being true to yourself.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's the problem with all this. That's my problem with art school, is that no one can tell you how to be yourself. That's up to you to decide.
Yeah. I mean, I think art schools, and like Stan and Marshall have talked a lot about that. I think they've really explored the topic, and because I get it a lot. But my summary of that is like school. I don't care for school. I didn't have a good experience with art school. It didn't do much for me with the place I was in. But what it could be good for is learning fundamentals and having comrades to do that
absolutely.
with.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, like, the only thing that you're trying to do is like change your mindset when you go to school. With all this stuff, it's like a, I don't know. I know this stuff is, I know this stuff for a fact. Like in terms of like the, when you're going against your true self, your soul speaks against you. I think you start to get sick more. You start to like eat worse. You start to like be more depressed. And you're going against what your soul is telling you to do. And I know that because I told you my dad has given me a lot of opportunity to go and be around successful people all the time, and I fucking hate it. Every time I'm at one of those dinners, I just don't feel welcome. It doesn't feel right. And it's like around some of the most successful people in entertainment now. And one, it's like I didn't feel like I belonged there because I didn't earn it, and two, it's like the way I would spend my time if I was doing that would be in an office, in a cubicle, even working on the giant things. And every time I was in a position that my dad got me that was like cushy and nice, I would think about what it would be like to live in a van. And it's like I actually can't help that. There's part of me that doing this thing is something I had to do. And I can't remember it. And I have no batteries, so
Okay.
we have the iPad. So
Cool.
But yeah, no, it's like you can't help but be hurt existentially when that thing is going on. You might be in a position that is like, oh, I'm comfortable. I don't want to leave my job, but you feel existentially depressed and anxious and sad.
Sure.
I think that happens to everybody at some point. And I guess the thing I'm saying is like, it's okay to quit. It's okay to move on. It's okay to like pursue the thing you want to do. I'm not saying you should quit your job and like pursue everything outright, but it's like, it's up to you to decide that. It's okay to give yourself permission to do it. Like, even for me, it's like I feel a lot less depressed living in a van and not having a bathroom than when I was living in apartments and having all the amenities in general. And like, sure, I was uncomfortable this morning because I really had to pee, and I had to like run to the bathroom over there before I peed my pants.
Oh, yeah.
At like 6 a.m. But
Well, I'm glad that was there.
yeah. No, yeah, I managed.
It's a convenient place to
Yeah,
be.
I managed to urinate, but like,
Yay.
that to me is like totally worth the experience of everything I've had the privilege to be able to do, by living in a van. And I think people's lives are meaningful relative to how much responsibility they're willing to take on. Not that's thrust upon them without asking for it, but if you take on more responsibility that you actually ask for and you actually contend with it, you're going to have a better life. I believe that as a fact. And like take on the responsibility and not be resentful of it. Not be jealous of other people's success, not be jealous of other people's money or what car they drive. Just being okay with who you are, and like accept the things that are, again, just accept who you are.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes to that I think that could lead someone to in danger of fight for who you are or settling, right? Like someone might think, why am I going against the grain?
Yeah.
If it's struggle what these guys are saying, then I should just settle on this thing, and like that is that's who I am. And sometimes that's the answer, but sometimes it's not. That's the easy for now.
Well, I think that's why no one should take my advice, is because it's like, it's
Make up their own mind. Just take information in and then think on it themselves.
Well, yeah,
and
to try, yeah,
put it
yeah.
on themselves,
Yeah, yeah.
and not just follow your orders.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Who would have guessed that's what you're supposed to do? You know, it's like there's no one that can tell you the correct way of living. It's completely up to you. There's no teacher you can pay money to teach how to be a good artist. There's no workshop you can take. There's no drawing exercise that can make you an amazing artist. It's all about like.
Hold on. What does that mean?
Here
I might interpret that as like, yes, you can teach me how to draw a cat, and then I'll know how to draw a cat better. What do you mean by it? Be an artist?
Like you can learn how to draw a cat, but you can't learn what to do with that skill. You know, that's up to you to decide. Like,
Okay.
you know, like here's a brush pen. You know, it's like this is the tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the tool you're supposed to use to be a good artist. But again, it's like it's in the hand of who actually wields it that determines on what's actually created with it.
Okay, so you're teaching me that's a brush pen.
Yeah.
Right. This is a medium used
Yeah.
to draw on a media, like paper or canvas.
Yeah.
Okay. You've taught me that. I am now Kim Jung-gi.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there you go.
I did it.
Now you're Kim Jong-gi. There you are.
I did it.
Yeah. You suddenly got 40 years of drawing experience under your belt in a matter of 2 seconds. You know,
What brush does he use?
I think he uses
I'm
a
kidding.
Tombow
I'm kidding.
sometimes.
Don't answer. the age old.
Yeah. What pen do you use? But it's like all this stuff has a lot to do with spirituality, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, some of my favorite artists are not necessarily the best technical artists. You know, people.
Yeah.
That,
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Like,
They're-
I know people who would love like that super, like minimal
Yeah.
Cartoon Network kind of like style stuff.
Yeah.
Just like flat and doesn't make any
Right.
three-dimensional sense or anything like that.
But it's
They would-
brilliant.
They would love that stuff way over anything that I would ever render the shit
Yeah,
out of or whatever.
absolutely.
Or like or Kim Jong-gi or
Yeah.
you know.
It's completely subjective.
Yeah.
And again, I think the job of an art teacher or teachers in general is not to present the information, because the information is very easy to find. It's to inspire the student. You know, it's like to actually get them to put in the work and believe in themselves. Like, you have to do figure drawing. You have to do anatomy studies. You have to do all these things. And I think you're rewarded based on the degree that you believe in yourself and how much it's actually going to help you, you know.
Just how you're going to apply that stuff to say what you want to say.
Yeah, it's like, like once I do this, I'll be able to say the things I want to say. You know, but I know exactly what I want to say, you know. I know exactly where I want to go with the skill, you know.
I think on a micro scale, that's how we talk about getting a job in the industry thing, right?
Yeah.
On a micro scale, that is to say, what you put in your portfolio, the type of work you do there, you will get hired to do, right? So if you put your studies of shoes that the assignment was to render out your sneaker on a table in school, and you put that in your portfolio, if you're going to get hired, it's going to be to draw sneakers on tables.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if you design like a knight with a cool sword and certain armor that really stands out to people, you're going to get hired to do that. So put what you want in your portfolio. But now on the macro, the spiritual level, if you open it up to that, it's again being true to yourself, and it's a matter of what you put in, which the kind of work you do is becoming who you want to be.
Becoming who you are. Well,
Right.
and like a more existential point of view, the energy that you put out into the world is the energy that's reflected out to you. Like if you go and wake up, and if you walk into a class, or you walk into an office, or you walk into a job, and you're like, this is the worst thing on the planet, I fucking hate this, that's what it becomes, you know?
Sure.
And you create that reality, you know? Whereas like if somebody walks in with a very positive attitude, no matter what the job or class or whatever is, and they're like, this is amazing, I can learn a lot, then they actually open themselves up to learning information. But it's that decision of opening themselves up to that, you know, it's like that internal thought. That's where it starts to get really dark, you know? And I think it's like, you know, those internal thoughts you really don't have much control over, in a sense where, like, maybe you grew up with bad parents, you know, you grew up bullied, or you grew up whatever. And it's like, it's not always easy to control your thoughts, you know, but that's the importance of exercise and eating well, like not eating, you know, Twinkies every day, you know, and the importance of like going on walks and meditating. Like you just start to change the way you look at things, and you know, the act of making a beautiful piece of artwork, the first step is having a thought. You know, very first step is just having an idea for something. Then it transforms and it builds and builds and builds. But if it starts out with a negative foundation, then it's going to have some negative outcome, I think, or at least more likely to have a negative outcome.
I would argue that each piece could be a journey, though. You start out a certain way, and you're having a conversation.
Absolutely, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then you maybe start here. You're like, I'm doing this piece because I'm so fucking angry at that person. And then, you get away from it. You come back to the canvas, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like that's in me.
That's who I was at that moment.
Like that's scary, or I'm embarrassed. Like, oh my god.
And that's real expression. That's like, and I have artwork that I keep a journal, and I will write just complete like a madman in there. No one should ever read it because they would,
good.
This person's crazy,
Yeah.
And it's like it is a place where I can be completely myself. Just let my brain go where it can,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how real art gets made. Is like you create something and you're non-judgmental to what it was. Maybe you illustrate something that's truly horrible, and you just see where that. You don't judge yourself for that. You just think, oh, where did that come from?
Yeah.
I think, the human brain is way more complicated than just like we think thoughts, then we go do them. Like, I was reading about split brain studies where in epileptic patients, they would cut the brain down the middle to stop the epilepsy. And they did an experiment where they showed the brain an image for like a quarter of a second, so a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And the conscious brain would have no idea what it saw.
Okay.
But they would ask the unconscious brain, the unconscious brain that handles your motor, your arms and stuff, what it saw, and it would always point to the right thing.
Interesting.
So the
how would it ask the subconscious? And not the conscious.
So it would show the image long enough for the conscious brain not to register it, but the unconscious brain would.
And how do they prove that the unconscious brain could see it, but the conscious one didn't?
So the unconscious brain handles the motor cortex, like your arms and stuff.
Sure.
It handles like your pointing power.
Mm-hmm.
So by asking, they'd ask like, hey, what did you see right then? You would say no, but then your arms would be like, oh, I saw a microphone.
Okay, so they would essentially say, hey, okay, so you don't know what you saw, but just point at what.
Yeah.
Just
exactly.
let your arm go at what you think, and it would point at the
always
right
point at the correct thing.
Interesting.
And it's like you are multiple different people in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain is way more complicated than just like I'm going to make an image. And
oh yeah.
it's fucking weird. It's like you're multiple people. It's like, and you have no control over that. That's just part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of being a human being. The metaphor that I heard for it is that you're again, I've been repeating this a lot, but you're a rider on an elephant, and no matter what you do, the elephant is going to be able to overpower the rider.
Mm-hmm.
That's the subconscious brain. It's like if you're happy or horny or hungry or thirsty or angry or whatever, your brain is going to go in that direction. But the rider can influence that, can slap it or hey, go that way. But ultimately, your brain is going to come up with excuses for why it goes and does things.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think if you start to, like again, the goal is to appease the elephant and appease the rider. I think it's just different ways of going about it. Do you do it by doing heroin or by painting pictures and going for a walk? Do you do it by hiring a prostitute, or do you do it by like having a meaningful relationship with somebody? It's like they're both ways of doing it, but one is obviously has negative outcomes on your life and the other has less negative outcomes on your life.
Okay, so you're not saying this is how you should do it. You're saying these are ways to do it.
Yeah.
But then it's you have to make the decision of what is good for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
because you're like you can make it happy by doing heroin and stuff. It's like
well, no, but it's like it's not.
But
you shouldn't do.
Yeah,
heroin,
you're just saying this. Yeah.
That's like, again, it's like the dark side and light side in Star Wars. It's like they actually want to achieve the same thing. It's like they want to achieve peace in the galaxy, but do you do it by killing all the Jedi and all the kids and genocide, or do you do it with love and like actual enforcement of laws, and or do you do it with lying or cheating and blowing up and tyranny?
Yeah, anything it takes, right?
Yeah.
For the greater good. That's usually what you encounter with Will.
And I'm saying it's like it's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's like it doesn't matter how far you think you can get. It matters how you do it. Like maybe like maybe there's a reality where you really want to be a master artist, and for you it's worth it to sacrifice the relationship with your friends and family in order to do that. So you're like, I'm going to do it for 12 hours a day. In 2 years I can become exactly where I want to be, you know. But that's the dark side. It's like you'd be giving up every other aspect of your life in order to be the artist that you want to be.
Sure.
And the reason that's not good is because you're not just an artist. You're also TJ, the wife or the husband. I'm sorry, I just assumed your gender, but yeah, we should cut that out. But
Cancel.
Oh shit! But you're TJ the husband, you're TJ the son, you're TJ the friend, you're TJ. You know, you're not just an artist. You have many different birthrights that were given to you. You know, and the second you decide that you're just an artist, that means you're actually giving up part of who you are, part of your identity, in order to, you know, I don't know why people do that, but people do it. You know,
Yeah, well,
incorrect values maybe.
it's incorrect to give up that other stuff to be the artist.
Yeah. Well,
Is there
to be just the artist? I think.
Sure. I would say personally, I think you're sacrificing a lot of the joys and the experience as a human by simplifying things that way or going that route. But that's, I guess you could still say technically that's like subjective.
I actually don't think it's subjective at all. I think my belief is that there is an underlying ethic to living your life. You know?
Okay.
It's like, again, you're not just like, if you have an identity, you're not just that thing. You know, you're not just a musician. You're not just an artist. You're not just a programmer. You know, you have like certain responsibilities put on you. Like you don't have the you don't have the ethical permission to kill yourself, because you're not just, you don't, like you live in an ecosystem where that ripples out and affects everybody, you know? And I actually think it's nihilistic and evil to say that it's like a choice, you know, because I don't think that's true. Like in the sense where like I could punch you in the face and you'd be like, that pain really matters, you know? Or you'd be like, oh no, it doesn't matter at all. It's like, but it's true that it does matter, you know?
Yeah. Personally, I agree. To be devil's advocate, I still would consider that subjective morality. You know, who do we have an ethic responsibility to?
And again, it's like you actually...
Humanity?
Well, you don't have a choice, right? You have biological instincts that you have no control over, you know? It's like, it's not subjective. You love your wife, right? You can't control that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and you know, she said she listened to this, yeah. But you know, you're a son. You have all these other things you have no control over. You know, if you ever have kids, you know, it's like you can't control the love of your kids. You can't control the love of your animals. And of course, there are people that, you know, have different levels of proportion to how much they love other things. But
Yeah.
it is true. It's like,
But what about, it's pretty depressing, but like, what about the people who just don't love their kids?
it's complicated, and I think they actually sacrifice something by it.
I would agree, and then like personally I could, but if we're just talking about what's in you, like this is a biological thing, and some people have this and some people don't.
Well, in a Christian sense, that's like the devil, right?
You sense, or a religious sense?
In a religion sense. In a religious sense, that's like the devil. It's like, because I like the Holocaust happened, right? It's like, how do you justify the Holocaust ethically? You know, it's like you can't.
No.
Right? It's like, but there is evil in the world. There is malicious intent, and it doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from inside you. You know, and I guess part of the thing I'm saying is that the path to, I guess, hell is paved with a series of micro lies, right? It's like maybe you getting up in the morning and having Twinkies for breakfast instead of, you know, and I guess like, I don't know,
Mushroom?
yeah, instead of not psychedelic mushrooms.
No.
yeah. Just to be clear, it's not psychedelic mushrooms. But yeah, it's instead of like you
Hey,
do you,
sure.
well you, I mean you do make a value judgment, you know.
Yeah.
It's like this thing is better than this thing, right? And I think when you make those value judgments, you're subconsciously saying, oh, this is getting me closer to an ideal and this is getting me further away from an ideal, because otherwise you would just do exactly what made you feel good in the moment, you know. But you don't do that, right?
Yeah.
And I think as a result you're striving for something, you know. I can't identify what that is for you because that's up to you, but like to say that you don't have an underlying ethic, I think is incorrect. Like, I think it's
And
I think it's
again, like
incorrect, you know?
I do agree with you on these things personally, and
Well, I think in the case of somebody who doesn't love their kids, it's like they love their kids. I think that they have given those dominoes have fallen too far for them to have the ability to love their kids. You
Yeah.
know? They've like, you know, woken up at noon too many times and had Twinkies for lunch. You know, or they've like said a mean thing to somebody too many times, and they lost the ability to find meaning in their lives. You know, which is tragic, I think.
yeah, I like to question these things because I think it's valuable to. We talk about authenticity, you know, being genuine and stuff, and I go so far with that as to sometimes that means you talk about the things that are uncomfortable, or you ask the questions that people don't want to talk about, sort of thing, and consider the real reality of things, right? And so you know, kind of sends me into two different directions, but one way I'm thinking of is, for instance, to talk about humans. That's kind of a downer, sorry, but like humans are like destroying the earth currently, right? And depending on who you talk to, some people think it's all fake. Other people think that it's too late. Like the things that have been set into motion, we're gonna dry up and rupture the earth from the inside out, sort of thing, or whatever. Unless Mother Nature kills us first, or something. You know, you get into that kind of talk. Global warming and all this is gonna have these effects. And then people will say, you know, this is wrong, and like mankind is fucked up, and we're this weird anomaly that has ruined the earth, and we've set off the natural order of things. But another perspective could be like, we're just as part of this whole thing as any other living creature or unliving creature or whatever organism on this planet, and so maybe it is just the natural order of things that we destroy the earth. Maybe that's just the way it is. Maybe the earth isn't meant to live beyond our existence.
Well,
And I don't like, that's not what I believe, that's not the future I want, and that's not how I live my life. But I'm just saying, like, let's ask the questions, let's think about it, so that when we do want to say, no, that's wrong, here's why, we've considered the whole discussion.
Well, I'm 100% sure that's actually incorrect. You know,
Okay.
it's like,
Yeah.
I do believe in a God. I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe that we're here to do something. You know,
Okay.
and I know how I sound when I say that. You know, I sound dogmatic. I sound, you know, to a degree, but I also think it's like, again, you can start where I'm coming from is that you can choose any arbitrary amount of time and be like, oh, life is meaningless, we shouldn't do anything. And like, in a million years this won't matter, a billion years this won't matter, a trillion years this won't matter. It's like, but that time is going to pass no matter what, right? In 10 years this podcast might not matter, right? But it does matter to us, right? And the reason I think that's important is that we have the ability to put meaning into things. You know? For life to be meaningless means that we wouldn't have eyes or the ability to smell or hear or sense things. You know, it's like that. You know, means our lives would be actually meaningless.
Sure.
And I guess it's like, sure, you could argue that maybe that's the natural progression of things, but I also think that it's like we don't want that to happen, right? Maybe some people do, but I would say most people actually don't want that to happen. You know, and people are going to work very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. People are already working very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, and I think that that's like, again, sure, you could decide that, or you could decide the other thing. Decide that, oh yeah, I can actually contribute to this problem. You know, you could decide, oh, we're all just going to die. Global warming is going to happen. I don't have to do anything, and I could just sit around and put trash into the ocean. Or you could decide, oh yeah, you know, it matters for me to recycle. It matters for me to be a vegetarian. It matters for me to, you know, actually help. And the thing that matters more depends on, it's completely up to you. Like however much energy you put into something, you know. again, in like a biblical sense, like we're created in the image of God, and that doesn't mean we're gods. It means that we're able to assign meaning to things, and we're able to see good and evil. You know, it's like a dog can't look at a microphone and be like, that's a microphone. A dog just looks at that essentially as a rock or something, you know. But this is a microphone to communicate to other people. You know, it's a microphone to, you know, be so much more than just a collection of metal and, you know, whatever else it is. You know,
pretty amazing.
And
really.
Like, we don't see the objective reality. We create meaning, right? We create meaning out of nothing, which again is like kind of like a godly thing to do. It's like you could choose and decide that thing matters. You know, that's a tree. That's a bush. That's an RV. That's a camera. That's a, you know, that piece of wood is, that collection of atoms is not just a van, you know, or not just a collection of atoms. It's a van, you know. And your ability as a person it's completely dependent on your ability to create meaning out of essentially objectively nothing, you know. It's like, as an artist, you create meaning out of essentially ones and zeros on a Photoshop PSD, you know, which is essentially just
that's what being an artist is all about, right? Is creating illusions.
Well, that's the objective
Yeah.
reality, is that you're just creating ones and zeros, like, you know, but that's not the real reality.
Yeah.
That's not the subjective reality at all, you know. And we don't live in the objective world, you know, at all. I don't think so. Like, if we lived in the objective world, we'd be, you know, hyper efficient and robotic, but we don't. Like, we get angry, we have emotions, we like assign meaning to things, and I guess part of the reason why I'm saying God exists is because you can't help that, you know. And I'm not saying any way of living is higher or lower than another way of living. I'm just saying there are higher and lower ways of living for you. It's like, you don't want to be a janitor, you don't want to be a coal miner, you don't want to be a lawyer, you want to be an artist, you know.
Yeah.
You don't want to be an investment banker. It's like, the fact that you're able to even make that distinction is a miracle, I think, you know.
A miracle.
Like, you're, again, that's like the meaning given to you by God, in whatever way that means.
Okay. See, you know, it's interesting how you use like the kind of the religious thing to represent it all. And I'm not a religious person, but what I think is good about that is, I think what you're using this comparison of religious aspects to explain this scenario or make sense of it is the best part. Well, one of the best parts of religion.
I think that's actually the best part.
Yeah, you're just kind of utilizing certain icons and aspects of it to make sense to it.
Yeah,
yourself and others. You're able to communicate and just use them kind of as vessels, because it's a story a lot of us tend to know, and it helps you fill in the answers and work through things.
And well, I think that's the only utility of it. You know, that's the only thing it's meant to do, I think. And people warp it to be this super dog. Like, I don't consider myself a Christian, because I think traditional Christianity is fucking bullshit. I think there's a lot of dogmatism. Like, I'll go to a church just because I'm curious, just to like, okay, what are these people up to? You know, then I'll be preached to, and they'll be condescending and patronizing, and like, you know, hand me the cash box and ask for $1 million. It's like, that's fucking bullshit. I don't buy that, you know. But then there is another correct way of looking at it, that it's like, okay, there's a truth here. There's a fundamental truth that transcends just a dogmatism. You know, it's like, people are people, and they will warp the truth to fit their, you know, their reality. And the Nazis did it, the Soviets did it, Christians do it. You know, everyone does it.
Yeah. And
it's disgusting.
The macro, micro scale, it's done at all levels.
And the real idea of original sin is like admitting that you are flawed, and to take the word of God and be like, this is the correct way of living. This is why I'm justified in having a $50 million private jet and mansion, and while people are starving. You know, this is why I feel justified taking millions of dollars in donations from poor people, because you know, they're gonna go to heaven, and you know, it's like, that's not real, that's not true, you know. But there is a truth in like accepting that you are flawed, and that you probably shouldn't be taking on that much responsibility for other people's lives. You're probably not that good of a person, you know. Like, like you have, again, going back to the split brain thing, you generally have ulterior motives, you know. You have motives for doing things that you never can even start to comprehend, you know. And the idea that you have the ethical high ground in any sense, I think, is complete nonsense. No, not you specifically, but, you know. Actually, you specifically. It's
Yeah, you got me. Nice.
And I guess the way I see Riot specifically is they're actually sharing the same stories as in the Quran or Bible, or, you know, again, they're creating these idyllic characters, you know, people to strive to be like, and then people are worshiping them. They're buying figures. They're putting posters on their walls. You know, they will travel from, I don't know, like Asia to California to go to LCS. You know, in the same way somebody would go from like England to Mecca to have a pilgrimage.
Yeah,
it's the same exact thing, I think.
For some.
No, well, yeah. I mean, I think it's the same impulse.
Yeah.
I think somebody could disagree with me, but I think I'm correct. Yeah, sorry for the rant.
No, it's all good. I liked how you kind of looped it all back around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always kind of finding a place where it's always kind of interesting to pick through what is the subjective aspect and the objective, and like we're saying, really get down to the core and what you think it is. And I think you're you know, but on a different thing, I think you're right about the use of characters and stories and kind of reworking of old tales.
Yeah, Arthurian legend, or you know, I mean, Star Wars is very simple, just, you know, hero's journey kind of stuff. There's a reason that stuff resonates with so many people. You know? I think there is an underlying ethic, like that hero's journey stuff is built into who we are. You know,
right?
Whether you want to explain that as evolution or God, it doesn't matter. You know, it's there. You know, you can't help it. You know.
Earlier in this conversation, I said myself, like growing up, a lot of my moral fiber was built via these medias.
Well, and it's somebody made that. Somebody dedicated their life to making that. You know, and it's like the only reason you were able to love it is because you were able to, like, somebody made it. You know, you were able to, like, invest into it. You know, somebody, like, people built churches, these great, amazing cathedrals. You know, that took 500 years to build. It's like, you know, like, the thing I think about is, like, you can't just fucking become an investment banker. You can't just, like, will yourself to become some super rich guy. Like, you know, there isn't, like, a super efficient way to live, but you just can't be that person overnight, you know?
Sure.
It's like you need a context for it.
Yeah, like, do you want to dig into that a bit?
Like, you can't suddenly care about NFTs to the point where you're just going to make NFTs all the time. Even though you can make probably way more money doing NFTs, you know? It's
like me personally,
you personally.
Why can't I?
Well, because it's like you would have to give up some of Riot, you know? It's like, you know, maybe giving up, like, the ability to make a shit ton of money off NFTs is worth the meaning you get from working at Riot. The struggle, the actual contribution to a team, contributing to something like Arcane, you know, TFT, like improving, you know, you're like following your path versus, like, logically it's, I should just get an NFTs. You know?
Okay.
I just make way more money doing that, you know?
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying now, because I thought you were kind of saying it from the perspective of, like, as bad as you kind of want this thing, you can't just change yourself overnight to pursue that thing. But you're saying, like, you can't fundamentally change your heart.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what matters to me. Working on these things is what matters to me, and this is why and stuff. So I can't suddenly just of course not.
Yeah.
Well, that's a matter. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into that, but, like, what does matter? What does money mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, what is money? It's like, it's weird. It's like I think the technical definition of money is just a physical representation of somebody else's time, you know? And it's this arbitrary thing that we all have agreed upon, that, like, a chocolate bar is $1, right? But there's nothing you can do. You can't take $1 into a bank and exchange it for gold. There's nothing backing it other than our idea that the chocolate bar is $1, you know? And that's decided by other people. It's like, where does that come from? It just comes from the collective idea that a chocolate bar is $1, you know? It's like, where does value come from in general? It's like, somebody will work way harder than you you know, sewing sweaters in China and be paid 3 cents an hour. You know? It's like, what's going on there? It's like geography. That seems like the only thing. You know.
Yeah.
And I even on a more relatable level, somebody might be in the Philippines drawing images as good as you, but being paid 1/100th of your salary. You know.
Okay.
I think that's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do about that ethically? You know?
What do you do about that?
I
What does that mean? What do we?
Yeah, and the answer is I have no idea. You know, it's like the answer is that's fucking weird. You know.
Yeah. I mean, well, then it's like, what realm are we discussing on right now? Because do you mean literally what's happening with economy, and you could say like,
no,
they're getting paid the equal amount to cost of living in this certain place of world, and that's why that's happening. Or are we talking about these like, what does money mean?
Well, both. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is like, what do you do as an individual, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you justify being paid 100 times more than somebody that does a better job than you? It's like, just based on their geography, essentially. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I experienced a lot of that when I was working in the service industry.
Yeah.
Being like, fuck you, I'm the one who's out here talking with customers,
Yeah.
cleaning up their shit, you know, having to deal with somebody breaking in,
Right.
making the food, caring about not getting people sick, and what are you doing up at your corporate office, making 8 times, sometimes 30 times
Yeah.
what I am, when I feel like I'm running the business,
Yeah, doing it
and my
way more work.
coworkers, and we're all getting paid like shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's like, how do you justify that ethically? And the answer is, I don't know, because that person is still providing value.
Yeah.
But is it? You know,
And why should I be able to have the life I do, drawing pretty pictures, now that the guy working at the gas station can't, when he's helping people travel around the world and get to where they need to be to do more important work than drawing pretty pictures?
Yeah, and again, it's like, the answer is, I have no idea. Like,
Yeah.
That's where the nihilistic side comes in. It's really easy to talk yourself into irrelevance. It's really easy to be like, oh man, I'm not solving malaria, my life is meaningless. You know?
Right. What do you?
So I think I'm going to write a book at some point, and one of the chapters in the book is going to be called "Why Build Museums Instead of Hospitals."
Oh, cool.
Because it's like, why do we fucking build the Metropolitan Museum of Art?
Okay.
It's like the land that the Getty. I'll say the Getty because it's probably more extreme. The land that the Getty is on is in the most expensive part of Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah. And it is a big fucking building too, and the building itself is extremely valuable. So like maybe the land that it's worth on alone is worth like $10 billion, and then the building itself costs another $10 billion to develop, and then millions and millions of dollars to maintain, and then all of the art inside of the museum is priceless, worth countries, right? And you know, all of those resources could have been devoted or could be devoted to saving people's lives. That's true, right? Why do we build hospitals instead of museums, or museums instead of hospitals? You know, it's like, the answer is, I don't know. I think I have an idea, but I want to explore that idea. It's like, why? You know?
Sure. I think there's a lot to explore there. I don't know that there's a solution at the end of the road.
There is a solution. I think.
Okay.
I mean, we're both artists, right? We both, like, whether, like, based on our actions, we value art more than building hospitals. Otherwise, we'd be nurses or doctors, you know? We do provide something for people, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, again, it's just identifying exactly what that is.
Right. Yeah, and I say those questions like, why do I make more than this person? Why does this person make more than me in these situations? But
well, and I think it's
you can have that conversation. You can read that resolution with yourself.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of that has to do with the hero's journey stuff. It's like you've pursued the hero's journey in a way that a lot of people haven't. You know, it's like you've taken the risk. You moved to Los Angeles. You know, you could have stayed in Phoenix and worked as hard as you were then, and probably not gotten as far as you got.
Yeah.
You know, but it was like there's something about like you sacrificing. There was like a higher power, I think, that was like influencing your success, your like brain. It's like again, whether you want to call it God or just evolution, there is like a thing, I think, when you go to a new place, when you go on an adventure, it turns something on your brain that's like, oh shit, I'm doing something, I'm gonna be, you know, it makes you take more risks, you know. It's like there's a reason why Lord of the Rings resonates with so many people. It's like Frodo as a character is admirable when he's in the Shire, but he becomes way more admirable when he leaves and destroys the One Ring.
Yeah,
You know? He comes back. He becomes like, he transcends being a hobbit. He's suddenly like the naive character that the king of Gondor bows to, you know, which I think is like a beautiful, like, okay, you know, maybe you going from Phoenix to California is your version of going and destroying the One Ring. You know? There's like, again, something going on there.
I think, you know, I would say that there's value to that, and just, you know, that provides some justifiability to what we're talking about, right? But if we're talking about success and who gets paid less or more, if we're talking about which that translates to who's being appreciated more, or whose thing is just more valuable in life and time and energy spent, it does not, I think a lot of things don't have that justifiable nature. I mean, that's how I could justify it to me in my experience in my life of why I deserve what I make now, you know, and people should have peace in doing that. If, for instance, if they suffer from things like self-deprecation and low confidence, you know, you should be able to take comfort in that. But there's things like that, people who make God loads of money and they do shit. They do bad things. Or they just they don't do anything. They just swap accounts at the right time, or
and again, it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It really is not about the money at all. I think it's about the meaning you pursue. And I think that it's like, I'm sure you make more money than other people, but then it's like there are people that make 1 billion times more money than you. Actually $1 billion, 1 billion times more than you know?
Sure.
And it's like, they also might be living way less meaningful lives, you know. And I've met some of those people too, that are making way more money than you, that are living less meaningful lives, you know, from their own subjective perspective. And I think that, like, the reason I'm careful to say that, like, your success isn't based on your, you know, I think success, a lot of it is like traditional success, is a lot of it is based on your environment. You know, if you grew up poor, it's a lot harder to make a lot of money and be successful. You know, I'm not trying to diminish the value of that, but I think I'm trying to talk about is like, you have the ability to make decisions yourself. You know, it's like, if you feel like you are stuck, you can reach out to people and ask for help. You know, you can ask for, like, hey, can this person help me? Like, if somebody's listening to this and they reached out to you and just said, hey, TJ, you know, I'm working at Taco Bell right now. I live in Indianapolis or something. I live in, you know, China. I really, you know, could I talk to you? You know, and they actually asked, and like, they would, you know, no matter where they are in the world, right? They could be in the poorest country in the world, and as long as they could talk to you, they would have your ear to get advice from. You know? And, you know, it's up to them to decide whether your advice is good or bad and whether they should act on it. You know, it goes back to everything else we've been talking to. It's like, you've been living this idyllic life, you know, working at this big game company, you're doing art, your stuff is being put on front of big things. It's like, you have some measure of credibility in, like, helping people get to there, you know. And again, it's up to the person that would ask for help from you to actually go and take the advice, you know? It's
absolutely.
Like, I'm sure we've both been in a situation where we go and ask some artist that we look up to for advice, and then we just don't go do it, you know. It's like, I want to talk about, like, why do we buy books we don't read? Why do we buy gym memberships we don't use? Like, why do we have legs that we don't use? And it's like, we have all of these things that are given to us by the universe or God or evolution or whatever, but we have the ability to influence and change our own lives. And I think it's ultimately our own decision to, you know, to do something about it. And the shitty part about that is people are dealt different levels of how awesome their hand is, how awesome their life start out. You know? It's like, I was born off relatively, you know, far ahead. Like, my dad was successful in entertainment, worked for Jim Lee, you know, helped run Wildstorm, executive at DC, you know, executive at Marvel, he's been successful. I started out further than other people, but that does not change the fact that I have to keep doing shit. I have to keep being creative, and because there's like, you can't just rely completely off that. You can't just rest on your laurels and do nothing.
Oh yeah, that seems like a downward spiral.
Yeah. You have to do stuff. It's like, and again, I started out, and for anyone, I feel guilty to some degree, but it's also like,
guilty
in terms of like, I have advantages that a lot of people don't have,
Yeah.
and it's like, I think everyone does to a degree, but I have like objective, like, advantages I can observe, and but the thing I'm saying, it doesn't change whether you're a billionaire or super poor. The thing you're supposed to be doing, which is like, live life well, don't lie to people, tell people you love them, eat the right food, go exercise. Like, if you can't do that, your life is going to be bad, I think, objectively.
Yeah.
That's an objective truth.
Okay.
You have to do those things. And it doesn't change if, your parents can send you to art school. It doesn't change if you're born in the middle of Nigeria in a hut, It's like, you have to do the things you're supposed to do.
The core things as a human.
And the goal is to just keep, like, I believe that people who live better lives see the world as a net positive, Like, I've met so many people, and I see people that are in hell, and I think that those people who see the world by choice or just by their circumstances as a net positive, and they're thankful for everything, they live better lives.
Yeah.
That's something I've observed. You could disagree with me, but that's the truth that I've observed in the universe.
Yeah. In this case, I totally agree. And I'm always happy to be the devil's advocate on things, but I think for the sake of conversation, for sure, and it'll give you peace of mind with wherever you are at in life. As much as you're giving and you're making sure that you are there for people and things in your life, the planet, even, it's gonna give back. Yeah, totally. So just do that as a bare minimum.
Yeah, it's kind of like a faith in God. It's like, if I just don't think about what anyone else is doing, I just exercise and paint pictures and eat well and just take care of myself, take responsibility for myself, life will get better. And again, I'm sorry if somebody, if I could truly help somebody who is addicted to heroin or born without legs or is in a truly difficult situation, I want to help them, but it's up to them to decide that they want to be helped too. They need to be open to advice. They need to be open to changing.
Sure.
And the advantage that I have over other people, it's not, the biggest advantage is not my access to resources at all. It's just my mindset, I think. And the beautiful thing about that is it's just your brain, It's like, you can read books, you can get advice from people, you can change,
Sure.
Which is amazing. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. I think that's something that we did mention earlier on was the idea of there's a core part of you who you can't deny.
Yeah.
And you said, as you say, you have a kind of an ethical responsibility inherently built within you to
pursue it,
do these things. But a different aspect of that, I think, is that you can, to pursue those core things of yourself. There's a lot of people who think they are stuck in this place and can't do anything about it.
That's hell to me, I think.
But I would say that you can kind of become anything.
Yeah, you totally can. And it's up to you to decide that that's worth the sacrifice.
Right.
Like, by you working at Riot, you're giving up YouTube. By you working at Riot, you're giving up something. It's
sure. But it's also to say that there is a pathway to do it too. It's not just like you can do anything and I don't want to think about it anymore. And it's a very personal path that someone has to follow. But it's to say that it's a spiritual thing, and there's also a very grounded, reasonable, forming synapses in your brain and way to do things.
Well, and I know life is suffering. Again, life fucking sucks. You don't have to look far into anyone's life to find some horrible tragedy, And I think, life doesn't, it's not net negative, but I think it's it's not that hard to find a reason in your life to give up, in anyone's life.
Yeah.
No matter who you are.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you have more of a reason to give up than somebody else. And I'm sorry, like, you know, like it's more difficult to just overpower your will and just go and do it. But the correct thing to do is just go and fucking do it. Like, you know, embrace who you are. Like, if you're a dishwasher, wash dishes the best you can. You know, do it. Be the best fucking dishwasher on the planet. You know?
Sure.
And like for anyone that is listening that might be struggling with motivation, like, just go fucking do it. You know, stop waiting. Stop asking for permission. Just like be the person you want to be. You know.
There is a certain amount of reasonability within that, though. Like, if
absolutely.
If you're the dishwasher right now and you want to be something else, like maybe you do got to keep being that dishwasher. And for me, like, while I do partially agree with you being like, if you're a dishwasher, go wash the best fucking dishes you ever have. I did that kind of stuff for quite some time, and I wasn't doing the best I could to clean those dishes because it was just I was expending as little energy as I could to get the resources I needed to get to the thing I really wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there space for that within your
absolutely. Yeah,
philosophy?
definitely. Well, it's like if you find something better to do, like, you know, go do that really well, you know. And it's like, like, you know, there's this, you know, I guess cliche of like, you know, change yourself before you criticize the world. You know,
What do you mean by that?
You know, how can you expect to, you know, be the leader of a country or an army or a company or something before you can even make your own bed? You know, it's like before you can wash dishes, how can you expect to be a master artist? How can you expect people to love what you do if you can't even like manage to, like, you know, clean your floor? It's like, you know, I think that, like, living intentionally and living like those things matter is actually an important step to. Like, your apartment is very nice. It's very intentional. It's very intentionally put together. And I think that mindset has contributed to your success. You know? It's like living like that stuff matters makes it matter.
Well, I guess to say it's a progress. It's a work in progress because I do think, I guess maybe it's a bit of a different topic, but yeah, I think your space matters and can influence you. I mean,
it's complicated.
Yeah, because right, you can have the mental fortitude to be a certain thing despite any of your environment because it's in your core of who you are and you're driven and this and that. But hey, if you can cater your space to help you be more creative or let you think more or just breathe more clearly or not be distracted or something, then yeah, I mean, give yourself the helping hand. And so yeah, like what you're talking about, where I've been thinking about that quite a bit. I told you I've gotten into like interior design quite a bit, and it's because I see how much it's you have to be careful not to get caught up in the material shit and like and the minutia of like, oh, I need to knock down this window, this wall and put a window there because I just can't work otherwise. Because I saw an article that says I need this many hours of sunlight each day. There's that, which is kind of like you're just giving yourself excuses, or you're you're making more obstacles to just not do the thing. Well,
and going back to the art thing, you know, the point of a space is to get you to live your life better, to make you enjoy it. You know? At least your space, you know. And again, it's Taoism. It's like chaos and order. It's like the yin and yang. It's like there can be too much chaos and there can be too much order. And if you're in a point where you're like, you can't walk around because there's too much trash on the floor. And there's shit everywhere, it's like you're not gonna be able to get anything done. But if you also live in a space where, like, you know, the couches are covered with plastic and, you know, people can't exist without like coasters on the coffee table, it's like that. What that communicates is that, you know, the world, that place would be better without you there, you know. And it's like you need that balance, you know. It's like you can't, like, you know, again, my van is relatively messy, but it's also like not a complete disaster.
No, it's glorious over there. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, like, but it's like
great. It's really
it's like slightly disorganized. You know, it's
a little bit.
Yeah, but it's like it's not. You know, I could still manage to do the things I want to do, and I could still manage to record this podcast. You know, I wish it was a little bit cleaner, but it's also like, you know, if it were cleaner and more organized, it would get in the way of doing things more efficiently. You know,
well, sure, and that also patches into your conversation about you felt paralyzed, like I can't start doing a podcast until I have the best camera, the best mic, and the this, and then, you know, we see like there's another like a van over there that's that like one of like super nice touring ones, and it has like a shower inside of it or whatever. And we're like, oh fuck, bro! Like one day you could do that van life, but I think your point being right that this is all you need to start doing the thing.
Absolutely.
And it's like, if that doesn't look great, or if you don't quite have this thing or that thing, you're not going to let it stop you. Like, oh, I can't do my podcast yet. I got to finish putting that stove into my van. You're like, no, this is what's important. This is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
You can have these extra things, which would be more conducive. You can
get something set up straight,
or you couldn't.
Yeah.
And that's the space you're creating.
Yeah, well, and it's again, that's why I'm skeptical of giving anyone advice. Like I think that I don't think anyone should listen to anyone else's advice unless they really trust them. And
listen to it, but do you live by it?
well, I think it's I can't solve anyone else's problems for them. You know, I could tell them like, you know, clean your room, but don't do it too much. It's like it's up to you to decide how much too much is. You know, that's the actual problem. It's like, do you trust yourself enough to distinguish how much enough is? You know, because like my level of cleanliness is different from your level of cleanliness and somebody else's, and it's like,
true.
You know, and it's up to you to know yourself well enough to be like, this is my space. This is exactly what I want to do with it. This is who I am. You know.
Well, okay, so we're talking about kind of like the result, right? Okay, don't listen to anyone else's advice because they're different from you and they have that different meaning. I would say it more like listen to everyone's advice, but then you figure out if that's something that you want to internalize. Or that's sometimes like me growing up, I had very few examples of who I wanted to be, very few role models of what I wanted to be, but a lot of what I didn't want to be. Right? So for a long time I was lost because all I knew was kind of like, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to be like them. But who are you? That doesn't define who you are. And if you're defiantly just not someone, that's pretty bad. You probably met some people who are just defiantly not a thing, right? So it's to say, I would say listen to all advice that's given to you, but you do need to develop a sense of, does that resonate with me? Why are they telling me that? Do they have some motive to tell me that? For instance, like if I could have a conversation with Picasso, he might say like, bro, all your figures make too much sense. You need to just break them up. You're boring. Like nobody cares about that. It's meaningless, because we know what he cared about. But I'm like, no, man, I want to show how cool this penguin is. You know, fighting against these, you know, ducks or whatever. And so that's what's important to me, say, in what I'm doing.
Well, and the thing is, he's right from his perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the strange thing about all this stuff, is that everyone is right from their perspective. And again, it's not like, I think as a society we all work together to create the society that we live in. It's like, I have no interest in being a building builder or an electrician or a plumber or a police officer or, you know, a boat, whatever, truck driver. But all those things come together to create everything that, you know, exists. Like a group of people created this asphalt, you know, that we're parked on. You know, it's like a lot of things had to happen for this podcast to happen. Like, again, somebody had to make this microphone, somebody had to make this table, somebody had to make this van, somebody had to make this camera, somebody had to make the clothes I have. You know, again, you know, thousands or millions of hours of man hours had to go into just enable this thing to exist. You know, and again, I would never, like, I'm very thankful to those people, but I would never do what they did. You know,
sure.
I have no interest in building roads. I have no interest in building microphones or, you know, concrete fireplaces. You know.
So sorry, the boiling down the point of that to be
like everyone's contribution is meaningful. You know?
And it's about them doing what matters to them and what's doing it well.
It's like putting down this asphalt. You know, it is meaningful. It's meaningful to us right now. It's like we're able to be here because of this asphalt on this ground. You know, it's like it was well done. You know.
Yeah, we would not have had a place to park, it seems. Otherwise.
And it's like, maybe like talking yourself into nihilism or irrelevance is a bad idea. It's like, no matter what you do, you're important. You know? Going back to the furry porn thing.
Oh, no, I like that. Yeah. Okay, really, because there's a lot of people who will say, oh, it's just you're important. Yeah. Like, you just are. And that can be helpful in the moment.
It's patronizing, I think. It doesn't help that much.
Yeah, or at least it's very fleeting, because I think when you say broad inspirational things like that, it can be helpful, but I feel it helps people to fill it in a bit more. So yeah, like I think you were going on something good, which is like kind of the nihilism. You can go there, right? But
I mean, everything you do does matter. It's like you could say that, like, oh man, why would you ever be a vegetarian? You know, that animal is going to be killed anyways. But like, you don't exist in a vacuum. It's like maybe you being a vegetarian inspires everyone else around you to eat a little bit less meat. You know, maybe one less cow is killed because you didn't eat meat. You know, and is that meaningful or not? And the answer is it is meaningful if you decide it is. You know? And you know, sure, maybe you eating less one cheeseburger is like, oh, it doesn't matter that, you know, but it does matter. It's like, oh, then that restaurant that you had that cheeseburger didn't have that cheeseburger from ordered less beef for the month because you know they just sold less cheeseburgers that you didn't buy. You know,
I wonder about that stuff.
Well, but it does, again, you live, you know, you echo. Everything that you do echoes out into society. You know?
Well, sure, and that's one of those things where you could say there's a lot of things we're doing to hurt each other or the planet or whatever you want to say, and there's some scenarios in the life of mankind that we know the right thing to do and we're not doing it. And it usually just takes enough people saying we're gonna change.
Absolutely.
We're gonna do it the hard way.
Well, and it goes back to the God thing. It's like you're created in the image of God, and if you decide something matters, then you're creating meaning out of nothing. Like if you decide the particular form of art that you think no one cares about matters, and you really give your heart to it, then people will fall in love with it. You know? It's like Van Gogh. It's like no one loves him until they did. You know, but he did it because he loved it. He pursued it because he really did believe in it. You know,
Did he?
I mean, he did the paintings, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if, like, he, you know, you could listen to what he said about them, then you could see what his actions were and be like, okay, you know, like, I think you could tell what somebody believes not based on what they say, but what their actions are. You know?
Yeah,
which is,
absolutely.
I mean, complicated, but like, obviously Van Gogh is a very complicated person, but and again, all this stuff just comes down to, like, again, having faith in who you are. Like you are a TJ, you are a painter, you are somebody who likes anime, you like anime boys. You know, it's like you like anime, you're painting anime girls.
You say that in a weird way.
But but it's like, it is weird. It's weird in a beautiful way. It's like, for most of society, the default is to die at 30 and be a farmer, right? It's like a miracle that you can do that. Like, it's a miracle that I can live in a van, and you know, it's amazing. You know, so much to be thankful for. And, like, it's not weird in a bad way. I'm not, you know, trying to. You know.
No, I was just kidding. You're like, TJ, you love anime boys. It's like, wait, hold on, like, let's.
Okay, yeah, you're married to a woman. So
no, I love drawing anime and stuff. I was just kidding.
I guess it's like, you know, but it. I don't know. It's like I think of Blink 182 when I think about this stuff. It's like they're singing about their girlfriends from, like, they're like 16. They're like 40-year-old men now. It's like pretty, like, weird from one perspective, amazing from another. You know?
But no, I mean, I think I'm gonna say in life, in anything I do, you know, I don't care if it's considered weird or not, and not just from like not trying to create controversy or sizzle, but just like purely like anything anyone does is going to be vile or weird or unacceptable or just really out there to someone out there, and it's going to be tame and conservative to someone else. So in that regard, really just like
be yourself.
100%. And that, you know, that ties into what I was saying about if you really like drawing this type of art, really do it, because there's people out there that are going to support you in it. You know, monetarily maybe, or just like spiritually, like Absolutely. They want to be your friends, they want to start a club and talk about it, they want to create a foundation, they want to create a religion,
they want to create something out of nothing, right? Well, I think that the way people study art is very much a religious experience. They will go from around the world to go to Brainstorm, go from around the world to go to Art Center. It's like, again, and study from these prophets of art, you know. It's like, to me, it seems like a very religious experience.
Well, I mean, that's when, like, religion. When you get into that, I think just like the old religions are so interesting because, oh boy, that's a big old bowl of discussion.
That's like a 50-year discussion. You
Yeah.
wouldn't even get to the end of it.
But it's to say, like, what I see happening in like IPs and marketing and entertainment right now is like people are trying to create companies or studios, creatives are looking to create new religions.
They're trying to replace God, I think. In a sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that could be like, well, that's scary or whatever, but it's a few different levels.
I think it is strange. I don't know what to say about it, but
Well, because like religion. What am I trying to say here?
I think
Like the old religion, I think there's probably a lot that started with good intention and means to help people survive and thrive in the day it was created. I think quite a lot of it is corrupted by man. Just involvement of man with anything and not being the raw source of it.
Yeah.
It's going to get corrupted. And sometimes that just means like, oh, they mistranslated a word. Sometimes it means they didn't like this person and what they did, so they put it in their book that you can't do that thing. And it's just echoed down generations. And so nowadays, I would say nowadays you can't create a new religion because we have too much data and you see the origins of it. But you can. I still see a lot of cults.
I know. Well,
and then you start.
I see a lot of I mean, somebody will tell you to go draw 100 heads or do anatomy studies in the same way a priest would tell you to go and do 10 Hail Marys.
Yeah.
It's weird. Or somebody would be like, somebody will play League of Legends for 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's like, what's really going on psychologically? And again, I think it's like the same thing as like maybe it's like replacing God in a sense. It's like
people are always looking for that God figure.
I think so. I mean, it's like a thing to do. A thing that, like, again, God not meaning like a guy in robes, but a God meaning a place to derive meaning from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, like I think that esports is just high-end marketing to get people to play the game more. And I think, again, we could cut this out, but I think there's a slightly malicious intent where they're getting people to think that if they invest their time into playing this video game, they will be able to make a living off of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's part of the intention of getting into esports, which I think is kind of malicious because that's not going to happen for most people who actually do it.
Oh wow, I would disagree with that.
Yeah,
like because there's always not just one person created esports.
Yeah,
right. Could you say the same thing about like NBA, FIFA?
Yeah,
that
it's there to
it's a
sell
malicious
Nikes.
intent to get people to try to aspire to a certain life.
It's
or
there to sell
have
Nikes.
passions.
It's there to sell.
Well, to certain people
Well,
in the business, but like I said, it's made by many different people.
Well, I think at the scale it operates at, it is there to sell Nikes. It's like why does everyone know who LeBron James is? I've never watched a game of basketball in my life, but I know exactly who Shaq is and LeBron James.
Yeah.
It's like, why? It's like there is definitely hero worship going on. He's transcended basketball. Like basketball is just hitting a ball around. You know? But it's obviously more than that to a lot of people, and the problem with that is they've monetized that. I think that's the unethical side of it. Again, nothing is binary. I think it's like basketball is good for a lot of people, and so is League of Legends, and so but there is the other side of it. There is the yin and yang. It's like the evil side of it. It's that like there are people who make a ton of money off basketball. People that make a ton of money off selling League of Legends merch. People that make a ton of money off. Again, all this stuff. It's
making money isn't inherently evil.
I'm totally a capitalist, but there's also like
bro.
Well, there's also too much money. It's like,
I just aside from having a personal interest and bias in these things, I just don't want to resolve things to absolutes in that regard. We talked about only a Sith works in absolutes. Everything is a shade of gray.
Well, and I think it's like if something can't be criticized, and still exist, I think that then that should be. I'm not the first person to make these observations. You know?
Yeah.
And I think it's like they still exist for a reason. You know, I still think they're. But I think it is more to talk about like, okay, maybe this stuff isn't completely ethical. You know, maybe there is like a darker side to the NBA or NFL or like, you know, the.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I would agree with one of the points you made, which is like with something being such massive business and money involved, it's going to inherently be corrupted by someone's intent. And but I wouldn't say that doesn't. The whole thing isn't inherently corrupt, like the NBA. I don't care about the NBA at all. I watched a few games as a kid.
Right.
I'm the same as you. I know who Shaq is. I know who LeBron is.
Right.
When I see them on the court, you know, when I see a commercial, they're on the court and they have these new like kicks on. I'm like, oh, those appeal to me. Yeah, they're doing that, right? But even marketing isn't inherently evil, right? Because it's like, on one regard, yes, there's somebody in charge of it that's saying, hey, get this product out in front of these people because I want to make more money off of it.
Yeah.
But then there's other people who are like, I want to share this with people because I care about it.
Yeah.
And basketball is so important to me. And LeBron is such an amazing individual. I need to share this icon with others.
Yeah.
That's not bad. But there is an evil side of it, which is, you know, like, these shoes are really shit quality. They're really terrible. Yeah. And the ones you get don't look anything like the ones in the commercial. Right. Sell this cheap shit to people so I can make lots of money.
Yeah, lie to them. Yeah, I think, again, and there is a correct again, I'm going to be a capitalist. You know, it's like in a tutorial sense, it's like maybe you're like, I'm a great artist, I'm providing you this massive amount of value if you buy my course, and then the course is like just complete fucking bullshit. It's just like you know, going on a walk and just recording yourself talking for 10 minutes and you charge $100,000 for it. That's dumb. You know, that's unethical. You know, and I think again, the slippery slope of capitalism is that, again, these companies are replacing the idea of God, and people are flawed. That stuff does happen. You know, people do compromise their vision and their values in order to get to more money. You know, it's just human nature. You know, and again, the problem is it's like, where do you draw the line? Where is it? You know, and the answer is like, I think it's like. It's just a matter of time before those things degrade into something that is no longer good for society. And I'm not saying that we should tear those things down right now, but it's important to like talk about them and to, you know, maybe like analyze where that evil is coming from. You know,
well, like this reminds me of that documentary I had mentioned about the weight loss religion.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what it was called. But it is an interesting study of what we're talking about here. Yeah. An aspect of what we're talking about, which is kind of like something that started with seemingly good intention and true belief behind it. Someone who felt like, yeah, this really matters. This is like beyond life and death. Right. Because it's about heaven and hell.
Well, and I think it's like when you know that you're ethically correct, that's when bad shit starts happening. You know, it's like, how does the Holocaust happen? Right? It's not because people are necessarily more evil than others. It's because they think they're more correct than other people. You know, and I think it's like, you know, I think most people, including us, probably, I mean, like statistically, I don't know specifically, just based on we're not in that situation, would have let that happen, you know, because that's what happened in Germany. It's like those people were just like us, you know, just like the people we know, and it did. Obviously, the Holocaust did happen.
Yeah,
and it's again because they thought they were correct, you know, like they believed, you know, to a T in their false science. They believed in eugenics, which had no actual evidence behind it, but they fabricated evidence to make it more believable, you know.
Yeah.
Which is, again, that's lying. That's like a lack of confidence. That's you know, that's like, oh, we can't find evidence for this, and let's just fabricate it, you know.
Yeah.
And
that's
a
evil.
lie.
That's
right?
wrong.
Yeah, that's unethical, you know. And that's incompetent, you know, or you know, the German government or I mean, Germany as a country was blamed for World War I, so there was all this resentment, all this resentment towards the rest of the world because they were blamed for this horrible war. So they're like, fuck you guys, like, fuck you all, all this anger. And maybe that was actually a sin of the Versailles Treaty. I think that was actually incorrect to put all the blame on Germany, because it wasn't just Germany. It was everyone else's fault in a sense that happened, because they all fought the war. It's like Germany wasn't just the instigator; it was like Archduke Ferdinand being assassinated.
Yeah, unfortunately, my history or knowledge of history isn't strong enough to either support or debate.
The way, did you know the way World War I started?
Refresh me.
So Archduke, I can't remember which duke. He was the leader of some country, but it was a very small country, like Brussels or something. It's like somebody assassinated Archduke Ferdinand, and then because of the way the ally system works, it's like, oh, I guess because I'm allied to Brussels, and then this country isn't allied with Brussels, like now France is at war with England, or Germany is. It's like,
by siding with this team, that means you're against that team.
Exactly. And just by legality, just by contracts, essentially. Just by like saying, like, oh, if somebody attacks you, I'll come to this aid. It's like, okay, now that France is like at war with this country, oh, now I have to come to the aid of this country. And it was like almost like people just fought because they were legally obligated.
Yeah.
So, it's like, but and that's incompetence. That's incompetence on everyone's part, including the English, including the Americans. It's like, in a sense, every country contributed to the Holocaust. Because, like, if you single out an entire country for the sins of everyone else, of course they're going to be resentful. And you could say the Germans, oh, you could forgive everyone else, but that's not what happened, obviously. When people don't take responsibility, they put the responsibility onto someone else, which was the Jews. So they were obviously killed. And again, that's like a collective humanity dropping the ball versus. And I'm not saying the Nazis are bad people, aren't bad people. They're definitely horrible people. But
agreed.
It's like we don't get to something like that just by like one person being
sure evil. And this relates to kind of like the NBA thing or the esports thing.
It relates to us. It relates to everything. It relates to, like, in what ways are you, like, because we're not completely binary either. We're not completely good. In what ways are you creating something like the Holocaust?
Whoa.
It's like, and the answer is you are, right, in some small way. And the thing to do as a human is to minimize that contribution as little as possible and try to get away from it. You're like 51% away from the Holocaust. And it's like maybe again, eating worse, or maybe like somebody really wants your attention and you don't give them the attention that they want. Like maybe somebody actually asks for your help and they do it genuinely and you'd actually get along, but you're like, fuck you, I'm busy.
Sure.
That would make them more resentful. They actually might treat people worse in general because.
Yeah, I mean, when you see stories, movies, books, and they have a compelling villain.
Yeah.
Usually it's not just like, the twiddling mustache ties a woman down to the railroad because, when you have a compelling villain, a lot of times it's because through the story, the author, director, whoever, shows you what their intentions are, why they are evil.
Right.
They justify it to that person.
Absolutely.
Something like Black Panther, Killmonger, maybe. Arcane is doing a certain level of that. Like even Game of Thrones, some people are just fucking evil. Other people are just of a different opinion.
Absolutely.
And so they seem evil depending on which perspective you're from.
Absolutely. And again, it's like, in a biblical sense, the idea of Satan. Right? Satan is a fallen angel. It's like that's the archetype. It's like Darth Vader. Obviously, it's like Anakin Skywalker, the best Jedi. Right, the most honorable person in that world is suddenly the devil, essentially. Or Scar from The Lion King. It's like he's the brother of the king, but he becomes the devil. And it's like, it's like the bigger you are, the harder you fall. Or, no great crime was done out of necessity. It was done out of pride or greed or lust or something. You know?
Yeah, can you explain that a bit? I know you refresh me on it. I know you explained it to me a while ago.
Like you don't judge a lower creature for their sins. It's like when a dog kills a rabbit, you're like, oh, that's just what dogs do. But when a human kills a rabbit and tortures it, like that's wrong. You're like, holy shit, that person is fucked up. You know? It's like when you see a little kid go and like pull the legs off of an insect, you're like, okay, that's unethical. That's wrong.
Yeah.
But like a dog actually just can't do that. You know, like they are unable to sin as greatly as humans. You know. And like you have the ability to go and torture people, whereas animals don't, because you have like a higher, you're a higher creature than a horse or a lizard or a dog or something. You know? So in a sense, you're able to fall further into hell. You know. It's like in the same sense in like an angel or like a transcended human in fiction. Like in Lord of the Rings, the Balrogs are fallen Maiar or something, which are like Gandalf could be a Balrog.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if he took the One Ring, he'd be like, he'd align himself with Morgoth. And,
Dope.
you know, but again, that fucking resonates with people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's a reason. It's like, you know, it whether you want to acknowledge or not, there is like a subconscious like, you know, oh shit. It's like, you know, Saruman is this. You know, he was an angel. You know, and he fell from grace. He became a version of Satan. He's like. You know, he fell further than a hobbit could, you know, because he was a higher being. You know?
Right.
A hobbit can know, a hobbit has less power than an angel, right?
Right. You could say with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's true. I mean, there you go, Stan. But yeah, and for you, it's like people look up to you, you know, as like you carry some amount of like. You know, your own version of being a Saruman, where when you were, you know, just a student, like without any power, like you could just paint pictures and be resentful and no one would care. But now that like, if you were to be resentful now, and like, you know, if you were at like a drawing workshop where you were teaching it and you didn't give it your all, and the students were like asking you for advice, you're like, fuck you guys, you would be like creating, you know, you'd be like. They see you as higher than them, and suddenly you're creating you have the ability to take that away from them. You know? Whereas if you're just a student, you don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
They just see you as an equal. But if you're as higher up, you know, you're like suddenly an ideal to them. You know?
Yeah.
So again, you have power. It's like, how do you wield it? You know?
Certainly. You know, which you know, something I do want to hit on in regards to that is. We mentioned something like if someone's asking for help earnestly, and you don't help them, it could put them down a bad path.
Yeah.
And that you didn't do your ethical responsibility to that other human being for the sake of mankind, for the sake of life and thriving and growing. And so it's to say, taking that to just like a personal level and just a very concrete level that's to say, you know, as someone in the industry with a name and likes or follows or whatever, you do get aspiring artists, taking it back to art again, you get aspiring artists who come to you and say like, hey, I, you know, really like your work, please review my portfolio and tell me what needs to be done. Or like sometimes it's like a vague like, how do I be a better artist? Right. Just a question out there. Sometimes it's a very specific thing, but you know, something that I kind of just want to put out there for like myself and just for other artists is that a lot of us, we do want to help everybody, and I feel like a lot of us do have that, we take it on ourselves to have that responsibility of like helping others on their way. But sometimes we are just really fucking busy, and we do have to have that kind of not work-life balance, but that balance to our life of like, if I'm sitting here and dissecting your portfolio for the next 3 hours, which I would do, and going in doing paint overs, or you know, you give me a question like, how can I be better at art? Right. Then that's taking away from the time I can invest in my marriage with my wife, or bettering my own skill, or getting time to relax, or doing another job to further, you know, my own success, or going out and taking care of, you know, adopting a dog that needs help, you know, like it's all limited time. And so that's just to say, like, you know, I hope people can have an understanding for you're totally ask for help and put it out there. Don't hold back on that. Reach out to people. And I do enjoy when people reach out to me, because I started off saying hours ago probably, I try to keep very much in touch with that aspiring time in my life, the apprentice time in my life, and I do want to help people along in their journey, and whatever I can do to help them with that and share this knowledge that I've gotten, and being very grateful for it. I have passed it on to people, pass it forward. But it is also, as a general PSA, I think, for other artists who, you know, I just hope that they know, if somebody doesn't respond to your questions or whatever, it's not personal.
Don't take it personal. And I do have an answer to that, where it's like, that's the idea of like original sin in the Bible, actually. It's not that you're evil and that you treat people badly, is that you actually can't focus on everything all at once. It's like, you not helping that person and you not giving your wife attention are both sins, you know. Those are both bad things to do, but by the act of you not having enough time in a day to do both, you have to choose one over the other, you know. Or it's like, because you're choosing something else, you can't be doing another thing, you know.
Sure.
It's like, in a sense, you're like, the idea of sin is like to miss the mark, to just not do your best, you know. And the idea of God in a religious sense and like an existential sense is something that exists outside of time. So something that can do everything, can help the person, can paint beautiful pictures, can hang out with their wife, can do everything, you know. That's the ideal. That's like the Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha figure, you know. But part of being a person is acknowledging you're not that, you know. You don't have enough time in a day. You're actually not a good enough man to like be somebody who helps somebody all the time. And part of becoming a fully realized person is acknowledging your limitations. It's like, I have no interest in helping people all the time. Like, I want to, like, again, watch YouTube videos. I want to play video games, you know. I don't want to cure malaria, you know, all the time. It's like, you actually you can't, you know, because you're not just, again, going back to the idea of, like, if you are just an artist, that makes sense. But you're not just an artist. You're TJ, the husband, the son, the artist. You know, again, it's like maybe it has something to do with like the Holy Trinity, like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's like, you are multiple things, you know. It's like, and to give up one thing for another is actually a sin. It's like, you can't, like, to give up something that you really care about in order to appease another part of yourself is like, again, like, you're gonna start working against yourself if you start doing that too much, you know?
Which, you know, I personally have gotten lost in that too before. It's all balance.
And again, it comes back to like, no one can answer this stuff for you. Like, you have to decide exactly how much you want, you know, what is correct for you, you know. And the answer is, that's complicated, you know. It's like, there's nothing that can tell you, there's no art director that can tell you that you're a good artist. You have to decide that yourself and actually believe it, you know. There's no one that can tell you that, you know, you're anything, you know. It's up to you to decide how you spend your time, you know. And part of having a faith in God is like, oh yeah, getting up at 6 a.m. is better than getting up at 1 p.m. and eating Twinkies, you know. It's like, that's better, right? You could say, oh, it doesn't matter, that, you know, it doesn't, like, oh, we're just spinning around a star in the middle of nothing. But that's not true, you know. It's like, if you know, pursue that ideal and you identify what the ideal is, it's going to work out in a way that you subjectively see as better. We've been recording for like 3 hours.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that thing about, we kind of grazed it a bit, like the nihilism thing. I think that would be really interesting to talk about, essentially this perspective and how you treat that. So I think we as humans, we tend to get to a point in our life, and maybe it's a low point or high point or something, and we lose meaning or something, but we arrive at this thought of like, what does it all mean? And then your perspective at that time can treat it, whether you go, well, nothing means anything, or every small thing means so much. But I think that's maybe a discussion for another day, because it's like a whole another,
again, like this is, we should make an art video together and talk about this.
No.
Or just make another video in general, because I think again, all this stuff is complicated. Like, I read a lot of philosophy and I read a lot of religious books, and I obviously live in a van and drive around the country and talk to a lot of people. Like, I think that these problems are the, like, again, if you can figure out the why to your life, the how of it becomes really easy. Like, if you can figure out the why to doing art, the act of studying anatomy becomes really fucking easy. You don't have to force yourself to do it because you're like, oh shit, I can use this to draw anime boys, you know? It's like,
Which I love.
yeah, you love anime boys. Sorry, I'm gonna keep my...
Almost as much as you love furry porn.
I love furry porn. Yeah, I just love it. Can you isolate that soundbite and just
God,
just
no.
But yeah, again, like, I think there is a fundamental truth.
Yeah.
It's like, be who you are, you know? I guess, do you have any closing thoughts or anything?
No, I just think there's always more to dig into. This stuff kind of inspires me more to actually make actual art,
Yeah.
experiential or instructional videos like we've talked about doing for a long time. So like this has really fulfilled that icebreaker for me of doing this kind of stuff. Now I just want to make it better and more polished and even start thinking through things. But no, I love talking with you,
Sick.
man. Like this is the best stuff, and I hope that any of it on one hand it seems really kind of like masturbatory for us to like.
Well, I was talking to Steven about this, and he was saying, like, are we just pretentious assholes that are just speaking out their ass? And the answer is yes. I'm totally just like saying complete nonsense. But it's also like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Again, it's like you could do whatever you want, you know. It's
Well, I think it's stuff that it could. My hope to talking about this stuff and just like, again, I told you, like I just go on crazy tangents here and there, and then I don't know that we always conclude some of the points we bring up, sort of thing, which might be aggravating to listen to. But it's something that I think that at some point in my life I would have really benefited from just hearing the ideas brought up, presented to myself, so that then I can interpret and think about it and take that conversation somewhere myself personally.
Absolutely. And
So
this is the way we would actually talk, you know.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't be worried about like closing those like concluding thoughts because you know we're like, oh, I get it, you know.
And I just get so excited, especially nowadays, of digging in like psychologically with people and like deep and getting to the true like what is the why and this and that. So I would love just to pick that up with anybody.
Absolutely. Well, again, how should people follow you?
Oh wait. All right. So I mostly update my ArtStation. So if you search for Geist Rock or TJ Guyson on ArtStation, hopefully Christian will link it.
I'll put it in the thingy.
Aside from that, look out for new stuff from Teamfight Tactics and a bunch of other little goodies that I contribute to Riot over there. And I'm also always looking to kind of branch out and explore my own personal voice on the side as well.
Nice.
So working on a lot of that, and always.
And you'll make a YouTube channel at some point, right?
Fuck, I don't know.
Or make art instructional videos.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
and some method. I mean, I would
Cool. Sick.
maybe something with Proco or something like that.
Nice. Awesome, man. Okay, I gotta pee.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.